The fun life of a troll in the Marvel Universe. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 426, Action Begins, Part 2. After watching the fight between Laura and the sturdy man for a while, Sherlock felt that his head was almost polluted by Laura. It's not Sherlock's fault. For example, if someone hits you with a left hook, then according to normal logic, if you catch the left hook that hits you directly, then the next step is to withdraw the left fist and punch with the right fist. Even if you are a martial artist, you can only do a turn and elbow strike at most. You can't escape the action of punching, retracting the fist, and then punching again, right? But Laura is different, because there is an Angelina in her body, who can also control her body, so Laura learns our bottoms left-right fighting in a nearly cheating way. This also led to Laura's attack without any logic at all. Both fists came out, a hook and a straight punch. This method is already a daily routine in Laura's fighting. God knows how Laura keeps her body balanced in such a weird fighting method, but there is no doubt that Laura really did it. As Laura's enemy, the most intuitive feeling is that even if you catch Laura's left fist, you will never know how and when Laura's right fist will come. If you are invited to describe it, then Laura's enemies can be said to be very uncomfortable and awkward. And Sherlock doesn't know that facing Laura is not just a matter of logical confusion and physical pain, but also accompanied by mental attacks. Reincarnated also said that Laura and Angelina in the body can control the body at the same time. So it often creates a situation where the right eye looks left and the left eye looks down. Such a messy look does not look very smart, and it is such a look that makes the enemy uncomfortable. As we all know, eyes are the expression window of the human mind. In fighting, in addition to staring at the enemy's body, you must also pay attention to the enemy's eyes. Masters can often roughly react to when you will make a move, or even where you want to attack yourself, just by your eyes. But Laura is a player who doesn't play by the rules. Who knows how to deal with such a situation, where two eyes look at each other? Well, this is secondary. It is not impossible to look at the body instead of the eyes to find flaws, but do you know how much psychological trauma it will cause to yourself when you look up and see the cross-eyed and out of the way eyes of the opponent? If you meet someone with a low sense of humor, you may laugh on the spot when you see such a wise look. Once the anger is released, you still have nothing to fight with and just admit defeat. So based on the above situation, whether it is fighting with Laura or watching Laura fight, it is a complete mental pollution, and it is a kind of pollution that cannot be relieved rooted in human logic. At this moment, Sherlock finally understood in his heart why Laura became a sniper. If she didn't become a sniper and squatted alone in a deserted place, it is estimated that Laura's lethality to her teammates around her may be greater than that of the enemy. What kind of logical confusion is this? Laura, you're on your own. After staring at Laura for a while, Sherlock decisively complained in the communication, and the other people who heard Sherlock's complaints actually showed an expression of I know you. Obviously, Laura has already fooled more than one person. After complaining, Sherlock didn't care about Laura's situation anymore, and decisively turned the gun to look in Brad's direction. At this time, the two guards on the balcony on the second floor had almost finished smoking their cigarettes. The two of them walked into the house talking and laughing. After seeing this scene, Sherlock decisively opened his mouth to direct Brad's actions. Brad, pay attention. The patrol on the second floor is about to leave the field of vision. You can start to act. Get ready. 321 action. As Sherlock's countdown ended, Brad jumped out of the water like a fish, grabbed the belt of the patrol standing on the dock, and then exerted his whole body to fall into the lake behind. Under the effect of inertia, the unlucky guy standing on the dock was pulled into the water by Brad before he could even react. Less than a moment after the two entered the water, a scalded splash of water floated on the water surface, and Brad also emerged from the lake carefully. Nice. Beautiful kill. Sherlock praised in the headset and continued to direct Brad's actions. Brad, pay attention. You are in the south direction of the villa. Compared with others, you have the most people here, so you must pay attention to safety. Got it? Please continue to give vision. Brad answered Sherlock's instructions very professionally. After hearing Brad's words, Sherlock didn't waste time. After looking at the room layout map placed next to him, he continued. Pay attention to the large number of enemies near the swimming pool on the left. It is recommended that you take a detour from the right. There are trees on the right to block the view. I can only roughly determine that there are not many enemies. You can go to the balcony on the second floor through the pillar on the right. You can bypass most of the enemies wandering around the swimming pool through the balcony. Got it? Brad started his own action after answering Sherlock. It turns out that Sherlock is still very reliable. Just as Sherlock said, there are not many people in the passage to the right, only 2 people. It is not a problem for Brad, who has been the assaulter in the team for many years. After easily dealing with the 2 enemies, Brad followed Sherlock's instructions and climbed to the balcony on the second floor along the pillar like a flexible monkey and began to go around the inside of the villa on the left. Seeing that everyone was on the right track, Sherlock, who had nothing to do, decided to do something of his own. That's right, as a sniper, Sherlock planned to name some guards who were separated from the crowd. According to his own understanding, Sherlock aimed the center of the cross in the scope at an enemy standing on the roof of the mansion, and then held his breath according to his body's instinct, and then gently pulled the trigger. As the trigger was pulled, the firing pin buckle was released, the gun made a snap, and then nothing happened. Sherlock, who was originally full of confidence that he could kill this person, was suddenly confused. What's going on? Sherlock began to check the gun in his hand. Sherlock was a stubborn person. He didn't even think about whether there were bullets in his gun. After all, according to Sherlock's thinking, since Laura gave it to him, there must be no problem with the gun in his hand. The problem must be himself. Sherlock touched his chin and thought for a long time, which step went wrong. Soon, Sherlock thought of the reason. Oh, it's me who didn't load the gun after all this time. I said it shouldn't have anything to do with Laura. He climbed down again, climbed up the pond, aimed, and pulled the trigger. This time, the ring on Sherlock's hand emitted a faint red light, and even in a place where Sherlock himself didn't notice, the whole gun was stained with black and red mist by the red light. In an instant, the whole gun seemed to have turned into a special effects skin in Call of Duty or CF that can only be unlocked by paying money. Then, along with Sherlock's movement, with a subtle, almost undetectable sound, a scarlet bullet rushed out from the barrel in an instant and flew towards the head of the enemy that Sherlock was aiming at. Chapter 427 Brad's Tips. With a tooth-grinding sound of bones and muscles tearing, the guard standing on the roof collapsed on the roof, as if the phone was turned off. Because of the tilt of the roof, the guard fell right in front of Anna along the eaves. The body that fell from the sky scared Anna. Carrying the body with only half of its head left in front of her, Anna, who had been a spy for many years, almost immediately determined the cause of death of the body. The skull was opened by a sniper rifle. Looking around, the only sniper rifle was in Sherlock's hand on the other side of the artificial lake. Thinking of this, Anna could no longer sit still. After blocking Sherlock, she immediately started complaining to Laura in the communication. Laura, are you sure there are no bullets in your sniper rifle? Of course. Can I still joke with you about this? Laura, who had just dealt with the bodies that she had knocked down, let out a long breath and answered Anna's question with doubt. After hearing Laura's answer, Anna looked at the corpse in front of her whose skull had been lifted up and asked speechlessly, "Then who can tell me why a body that was obviously hit by a sniper rifle fell from the roof here?" Listening to Anna's complaints, Laura was also dumbfounded. She even touched the small waste bag on her waist to make sure that she had indeed removed the magazine. Yes, that's right. She only brought 5 magazines of spare bullets in total, and now the 5 magazines were lying quietly in her waist bag. Logically speaking, Sherlock's gun should only have 1 empty magazine with no bullets. Just when the two were puzzled, Reinhardt's panting voice just happened to interrupt. "Phew, I'm so tired. Ladies, have you forgotten that the guy used a broom to create the effect of a Gatling gun in the warehouse? We saw it with our own eyes. I gave him the accessories of his unknown broom, and Brad helped install it. This guy can use a broom as a gun, so isn't it normal for him to use a sniper rifle without bullets to fire bullets?" After hearing Reinhardt's complaints, Anna and Laura were silent for a moment, just like Cambridge tonight. The two of them didn't know what to say for a while. After a long while, Anna's gritted teeth finally sounded in the silent communication. Damn it, it was a mistake. I forgot that this guy never plays by the rules. Everyone, pay attention. Get rid of the nearby transportation as soon as possible. We don't have much time. Sherlock can shoot. We don't know when we will be exposed. But even if he can't shoot, I think it will be soon. After all, the more people we knock down, the greater the chance of being discovered by the other side. Also, there is no need to answer everything I said just now. I'm going to remove Sherlock's shield. After Anna finished speaking, everyone's face was smiling. God knows how angry Anna is now. It's a pity that I didn't see the expression on Anna's face with my own eyes, otherwise it would be very funny. Of course, Sherlock, who knew nothing about this, was not among those who wanted to see Anna's expression. Similarly, Brad was not among them. Brad didn't even dare to reply to the communication just now. As for the reason, it was very simple. At this time, Brad was on the balcony on the second floor and carefully moved to the other side of the swimming pool. The guardrail of the balcony on the second floor of this villa is a Roman column-shaped guardrail, which means that Brad dare not stand up and move forward. After all, if any guard looks up, he will immediately find Brad standing up. So Brad can only crawl carefully on the ground, and at the same time, be careful not to make any noise to alert the large number of guards below. However, facts have proved the truth of Murphy's Law again and again. Just when Brad was carefully not wanting to attract any attention and passed through the balcony above the swimming pool, a guard wearing a jacket suddenly walked out from the corner of the balcony. And this guard was also noticed by Brad as soon as he appeared, and the two looked at each other inexplicably. Just when Brad's mind was full of thoughts of whether he should stand up and resist, the strong guard who suddenly appeared on the opposite side gave a scream that shocked the world and made the gods cry, which was beyond Brad's expectation. Well, it's normal to think about it. After all, as a guard, whether you find a corpse or an enemy, you will respond calmly, but the premise is that the thing you find must be a person. In the middle of the night, if you see a zombie with cloudy eyes and purple skin all over your body, you just walked past it, and there was nothing, and then it suddenly appeared in front of you after a turn, and crawled in the dark in front of you. I guess everyone would scream, and this is because the strong man is brave enough to scream. If it were a less courageous person, I guess he would show Brad what it means to fall asleep on the spot. Damn it, I'm discovered. It has to be said that Brad's reaction is still very fast. The strong guard screamed for less than a second, and Brad immediately reacted. He raised his hand and shot the unlucky guy who was overly frightened to see God. Although Brad's gun was equipped with a silencer, the silencer in reality cannot make only a faint puffing sound like in the movie. Under the dual effects of screams and gunshots, the whole villa became boiling in an instant. In an instant, the villa seemed to be at 12 o'clock on New Year's Eve, with gunshots everywhere. When Brad rolled to avoid the first wave of attacks from multiple guards near the swimming pool downstairs, he missed the days when he could throw grenades at will and kept thinking about countermeasures. He saw a series of red tracks suddenly appearing on the other side of his head. The scarlet tracks were like the sickle of the god of death, and in an instant they almost covered the area near the swimming pool below Brad. Then there was a series of sounds of corpses falling to the ground. Listening to the sound coming from below, Brad stood up carefully, carrying the originally luxurious swimming pool below, which became tattered under Sherlock's attack, and the picture of hell with corpses and rubble. Brad touched his chin in surprise, and said in the communication, Laura, I have a constructive suggestion. Do you want to hear it? If you have anything to say, come on. Laura's answer was accompanied by a burst of gunfire that sounded like frying beans, which sounded quite irritable. Brad didn't mind and continued to talk while stroking his chin. Well, Laura, I'm just suggesting something, just a simple suggestion. Tell me, if you put the sniper rifle scope on the Gatling gun, will you be invincible? Chapter 428 The Disappearing Uncle Tom. Brad, if you really have nothing to live for, go and bite a lighter. Do you want to hear what she said? I, %##%#. Laura and Angelina's voices started to send telegrams in the communication alternately, and Brad didn't care. He shrugged his shoulders and ignored the two people's telegrams and walked into the mansion with a relaxed look. As for Sherlock, well, after being exposed, Sherlock can be said to have had a lot of fun. With the help of the reality gem, Sherlock realized the sniping experience that can only be found in the game. Automatic tracking, automatic locking, fire coverage, and no recoil were all done for Sherlock without Sherlock's consciousness. And Sherlock himself had no idea how outrageous it was that, as long as you aim the crosses at the enemy, you can kill. He even felt that this so-called sniping didn't just require hands. Why did he suffer so much and practice sniping for so long in the first place? As Sherlock was showing off his might in the south of the villa, and there was a machine gun in the north that far outclassed everyone present, most of the enemies were suppressed in the house by Sherlock and Reincarnated, one in the south and one in the north. But to be honest, this was not a doubt for Laura, Anna, and Brad, who were in the house at the time. Brad, not to mention, was able to survive as long as he was not shot in the head with the help of Sherlock's magic potion. Moreover, Brad had the property of being able to recover by drinking blood. In addition to the strange style of painting, it can be said that he was recovering while fighting. Well, as for the strange style of painting, it was also caused by Brad's scary appearance. After all, who would scream when seeing a zombie with a livid face and a grim smile rushing out with a gun? Fortunately, Brad was almost used to this mode. Well, just shooting a burst of bullets at the place where the scream was basically enough to solve the battle. As for the remaining two people, Laura's style is similar to Brad's. If Brad's style is a horror and bloody theme, then Laura's style is probably Cthulhu's style. After all, there is an Angelina in Laura's body. The two are awesome. The two eyes aim at each other, and one person with two guns can actually fire the firepower of two people. The key is that they are very accurate. It just looks a bit sanity reduced, especially when encountering enemies attacking from both sides. Laura can aim her left eye at the gun in her left hand and her right eye at the gun in her right hand. At this time, if someone is in front of you, you can see that half of her face is smiling crazily, and the other half is full of seriousness. Laura's eyes are still outward looking. It's just weird. That expression seems to be contaminated by some indescribable creature, which makes people linger. The only one with a normal style among the crowd is Anna. Similarly, with two great gods supporting her, Anna's side is under the least pressure. Naturally, Anna is also the one who discovered Holly. However, when Anna released Holly, who was almost soaked in sweat from the damp sauna, Harley grabbed Anna and said to her excitedly, "Go to the basement quickly. I just heard people outside say that the nuclear bomb is in the basement." After hearing Harley's statement, Anna did not hesitate too much. She took a pistol from the corpse next to her and stuffed it into Harley's hand. After reporting the situation in the communication, she took Harley to break out in the direction of the basement. When the two arrived at the basement, they found that they were still a step late. The entire basement was empty, and next to it was a door that looked like a vault that had been blown open, and on the chair inside the door was the body of the one-eared man they had been tracking. Anna used the Geiger counter abandoned on the table to detect the small room that had been blown open. Looking at the constantly jumping values on the Geiger counter, the two dared to be sure of one thing, that is, the nuclear bomb must have stayed in this room, as Harley said. After confirming this, Anna immediately ordered her team members to speed up the cleanup and then began to track the guys who took the nuclear bomb. With G-Ram's efforts, the guys in the villa were soon cleaned up by a few not very normal people, and Sherlock also rushed over at this time. Everyone began to search the entire villa for clues, and Harley took back her precious computer again and started to operate on the computer. Although there was no trace of the nuclear bomb here, and the boss of the group of buyers was not seen, the good news is that heir is dead, and Anton is probably in K's black prison, and will never get out in this life. Now the only thing left is to find the nuclear bomb. According to Holly, she saw the face of the boss, and she could search the whole city for the traces of the guy who took the nuclear bomb through the camera, and according to her own observation, it seems that there is a bomb disposal expert in their team, who is similar to Uncle Tom. So there is basically no need to worry about the time limit given by heir at the beginning. The most important thing now is to find the nuclear bomb. or at least to determine where these guys want to use this small nuclear bomb that can destroy a city. Here, Holly was already busy on the sofa in the villa with her computer, and Sherlock was also considerate enough to give his girlfriend who had been kidnapped for a long time a bottle of iced cola that had just been taken out of the refrigerator, that had survived the gunfight, and thus received Harley's sweet thanks. The other 3 people who were responsible for clearing the scene and searching also returned to the living room soon, but unlike the cheerful Harley and Sherlock on the other side, the faces of the 3 people who returned were not very good. As for the reason, it was very simple. They searched the entire villa and found no trace of Uncle Tom. Whether it was a corpse or any other evidence, they couldn't even find the place where Uncle Tom was imprisoned. But according to Holly, she saw herself being dragged off the plane with Uncle Tom. Although they were not imprisoned together, Harley was sure that Uncle Tom must have been in the villa at that time. But now, let alone the corpse, even the place where Uncle Tom was imprisoned in the villa could not be found. Anna repeatedly asked her 3 team members, but they all said they hadn't found it. They even checked every place carefully, but they still couldn't find a secret room or any other secret place of imprisonment. After hearing the answers from her team members, Anna's face suddenly darkened. Tom's disappearance meant only 2 things. Either Tom was still in the hands of those buyers, or Anna didn't even dare to imagine the other situation. If this conjecture was confirmed, then their busy night would undoubtedly be like a joke. Chapter 429 The Joker and Batman. Part 1. Seeing Anna's face as black as the bottom of a pot, the faces of the remaining 3 people were not very good either. As people who have worked their way up to the top positions on the K platform, Brad, Reinhardt and Laura knew very well what Anna's face as black as the bottom of a pot meant. However, none of the 3 spoke out. After all, without solid evidence, no one wanted to suspect that their teammates had betrayed them. Moreover, Harley was still investigating. Before Harley's investigation was over, no one would say the terrible guess in their hearts. Seeing the 4 people's faces changing, the atmosphere in the whole room began to change towards a dull and serious direction. Sherlock opened his mouth several times to say something, but in the end he closed his mouth because of the weird atmosphere in the room. After thinking again and again, Sherlock sighed helplessly and stood up and walked out of the room. Sherlock didn't know what tricks Anna and their teammates were playing, but Sherlock knew that there were still many things that had not been completed. For example, Bruce, the driver of the team, should still be unconscious in the cabin by the lake opposite. Judging from the looks of the crowd, it was obvious that they had no intention of returning to the small house, so Sherlock could only stand up alone and prepare to pick up Bruce. Well, thanks to the generosity of the owner of this mansion, Sherlock saw a small speedboat on the dock of the mansion, so he didn't have to drive a long way to pick up Bruce. After happily jumping onto the boat and throwing the dust cloth on the boat on the dock, Sherlock remembered that he didn't seem to know how to drive a boat. That's right, Sherlock doesn't know how to drive a boat. During the 7 years of training, Sherlock's 5 uncles taught Sherlock how to fly a helicopter and a fixed-wing aircraft, but they really didn't teach Sherlock how to drive a boat. Fortunately, this boat is just a speedboat. After Sherlock fiddled with it for a while according to his intuition, you can't believe it, Sherlock successfully started the speedboat. Then after another round of chaotic attempts, Sherlock successfully figured out the position of the throttle. After removing the rope used to fix the boat, Sherlock happily drove the boat towards the hut opposite. During this period, Sherlock, who was in a playful mood, also tried stunts such as drifting on the water. Then, after drinking a belly of lake water mixed with wind and sand, Sherlock became honest and drove the boat steadily to the small dock of the security booth. After jumping onto the dock and fixing the boat, Sherlock whistled happily and came to the door of the hut and opened the door of the hut at once. Then, the expression on Sherlock's face began to become very exciting. Well, according to reason, with the previous experience of Uncle Tom, Bruce should still be in a coma at this moment. But the fact is that Bruce has woken up at this time, and even because of the fear that Bruce would make trouble and run around after waking up, he was tied up like a mummy. At this time, Bruce was trying to swim on the ground. And Bruce's goal was clear enough, which was the iron bucket filled with messy tools not far away. How should I put it? except that the movement of surging on the ground looked like the white bug on the yellow and white things in the dry toilet in the countryside in summer. Bruce's consciousness seemed unusually clear. "Bruce, you're awake." Sherlock silently took out his mobile phone and took a photo of Bruce cosplaying as a maggot, then spoke. In the face of Sherlock's question, Bruce's answer made Sherlock speechless. "Who are you? What do you want to do?" "I'm Bruce Wayne, the young master of Wayne Group. How much money did your employer give you to kidnap me? I can pay double." As soon as Bruce opened his mouth, Sherlock knew that Bruce was awake. Did he really think of himself as Batman? What the hell is Wayne Group? If you really had a Wayne Group, would you have fallen to running to Kay's broken place to be a pilot? Huh. After Sherlock complained in his heart for a while, he suddenly realized something. A bold and evil idea appeared in Sherlock's head in an instant. The next second, Sherlock started laughing and became more and more crazy. He subconsciously wiped his hands on his head, and the human body deformation was successfully performed. In an instant, Sherlock's short hair became longer and the color turned green. He looked like the Joker in Heath Ledger's version. After doing all this, Sherlock walked towards Bruce, who was still lying on the ground, with a weird and crazy pace, and he was still performing while walking. Well, Bruce Wayne, you see, I have said it a long time ago. We are definitely a perfect match, just like the front and back of a coin. You can't get rid of me, even if you have changed the world. Sherlock walked in front of Bruce, squatted down, took out a coin from his pocket, played with the coin in his hand, and said to Bruce with a crazy smile on his face. Bruce did not disappoint, and directly called out the name of the character played by Sherlock according to Sherlock's script, the Joker. God knows how proud Sherlock was when Bruce called out the name of the character played by Sherlock. At this moment, Sherlock even felt that Hollywood owed him a little golden man. Of course, although he was already very happy in his heart, on the surface, Sherlock still maintained his performance and began to laugh wildly. Ha 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 ha. That's right. Bruce, you finally recognize me. We have fought for a lifetime in Gotham. I didn't expect that we would meet again in this world. And this time, it seems that I'm ahead of you. Sherlock stood up in a pretentious manner and came to the workbench in the house with a crazy feeling all over his body. He picked up a stack of bound A4 papers, looked at the fishing log on it, and began to make up nonsense. "Bruce, you know, I'm very lonely without you. Let me see. Oh my god, no wonder you haven't awakened for so long. It turns out your family is still here. Let me see. Ha. Not only your parents, you actually have a cute little sister. Let me think. How was Batman born? Ha. I figured it out." Sherlock casually threw the A4 paper in his hand on the table, then squatted down in front of Bruce and said to Bruce with a crazy smile on his face, "Big Bat, I'm very lonely without you. So I decided to make you a real Batman. I'm going to kill your whole family in front of you. Just like in Gotham. The Joker can't live without Batman, and similarly, Batman can't live without the Joker." Ha 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 ha. Chapter 430, The Joker and Batman. Part 2. Well, the last laugh was not the line Sherlock expected, but the expression on Bruce's face was so funny that Sherlock couldn't hold back and laughed. But in Bruce's opinion, there was nothing wrong with Sherlock's laughter at this moment. It was in line with the Joker's personality, coupled with Sherlock's terrifying remarks about killing his whole family in front of him. Bruce was directly broken. "Joker. I %. I @ my whole family. %. And Anne." Listening to Bruce's telegrams that were scolded because of his breaking of defense, Sherlock laughed happier and happier. How to say it, there was a sense of accomplishment, that his bad taste was satisfied, and the prank was completed. Well, to some extent, Sherlock now does have some similarities with the Joker. Ignoring Bruce's continuous telegrams, Sherlock laughed and picked up Bruce, who was tied up like a mummy on the ground, and walked out, throwing Bruce onto the boat casually, and looking at Bruce who was gradually calming down. Sherlock said something mean again. "Come on, Bruce, let's embark on the road of transformation." When he said this, Sherlock looked at the sun that was slowly rising in the sky, thought for a while, and added another sentence. "Look, God seems to have congratulated the upcoming Batman. Rise up, great sun." offer endless light for the birth of Batman. In fact, Sherlock's slightly second-year sentence did not fit the Joker's character at all, but it was obvious that Bruce was already so happy that he didn't notice it at all. On the contrary, because of his unclear mind, Bruce, who really thought of himself as Batman, broke his defense again. Hearing the sound of Bruce's telegram lying on the cabin, Sherlock laughed very happily. It seemed that this time Sherlock really stimulated Bruce, and after Sherlock led Bruce into the mansion, the corpses on the ground in the mansion also stimulated Bruce, thinking that Sherlock was really here to kill his whole family. Bruce's telegrams never stopped along the way, and of course, Sherlock's laughter never stopped. When Sherlock saw Bruce walk into the room he had just left, the stagnant atmosphere in the room disappeared without a trace because of the two people's strange behavior. Looking at the four people sitting around Holly, as if they were in a three-court trial, Sherlock hadn't spoken yet, but Bruce shouted first. "Run. Alfred. Take your parents and sister and the rest of the people away. The Joker is here. He wants to kill you. Force me to become Batman." Reincarnated. Alfred? Me. Anna. Mom? Me. Brad. Dad? Me. Laura. Sister? Me. Except for Holly, who was classified as someone else, and was typing on the keyboard, and had no time to pay attention to Bruce. Everyone had a big question mark on their heads, and looked at Bruce with a puzzled look on their faces, making the expression of Shinraijin pointing at himself. Especially Anna and Laura, they were confused and angry. You have to know that Anna is not that old, and she is not much different from Bruce. Then, being called mom for no reason, you can imagine how uncomfortable it is. Not to mention Laura, who is older than Bruce. In addition, due to various trainings, Laura actually looks very old. But how could such a Laura become Bruce's sister with a second-year syndrome? Anna and Laura both said that they could not accept it, and they both felt offended by Bruce. Everyone turned their eyes to Sherlock, who had thrown Bruce to the ground, and was holding his stomach and almost laughing, waiting for Sherlock to give an explanation. Sherlock did not waste time, and immediately told Bruce what he had just done to fool him. After listening to Sherlock's explanation, everyone looked at Uncle Bruce with a different look. How to say it, except for Laura, they all became very harmonious. Especially Brad and Anna. They even asked Reincarnated to take out his phone to record a video of Bruce anxiously shouting for their parents to leave quickly, which made Laura, whose face was as black as the bottom of a pot, slap Bruce, who was not very sober, and knocked him unconscious. I wonder what Bruce's expression will be when he wakes up and looks at the video of his colleagues shouting for their parents in his phone. After Bruce's little episode, everyone felt much better. They found a seat and sat down and waited for Holly to continue tracking the group of guys who had disappeared. It was not until the sun completely rose from the horizon and the sky was bright that Holly frowned and stopped typing on the keyboard. Seeing Holly stop her movements, everyone quickly gathered around, and Anna asked with a trembling voice, "What's the situation, Holly?" Hearing Anna's question, Holly sighed helplessly and said, "I'm sorry, but it's not that good. I hacked into the cameras of the entire city. From the time point of view, I can't find any clues, except that the buyers left here shortly after I was caught. It's as if this group of people suddenly evaporated after leaving the villa, and there is no trace of them. There are only three possible situations. The first is that there is a genius in that group of people whose computer technology is better than mine, comparable to Tony Stark, who can hide their activities in the monitoring system of the entire city. The second situation is that there are one or more superpowers in this group of people that we don't know about, just like Sherlock, who can shield all surveillance cameras. The remaining one." Holly paused here, as if she was organizing her words for a while, and then continued. "The remaining possibility is that there is a veteran of the K among this group of people. He knows the K's methods of action very well, and is able to lead people to escape the K's pursuit by following illogical behaviors." As Holly's voice fell, the originally peaceful atmosphere suddenly dropped to the freezing point, and everyone's faces turned dark, as if Holly's words just now made their bad premonition even stronger. Seeing that her companions' faces were as dark as the bottom of a pot, and no one was willing to talk, Holly could only sigh helplessly before continuing. "There is also evidence that can directly prove that Uncle Tom betrayed the K. Maybe Uncle Tom was coerced? It's too early to draw a conclusion now. I set up a small program. As long as the buyer's phone rings, whether it is an outgoing call or an incoming call, I can locate it. Before Harley finished speaking, a shrill alarm sounded on the computer. Chapter 431, Hell Scroll, Part 1. At the moment the alarm sounded, Anna's reaction speed was even faster than Holly, who was closest to the computer, and she directly pulled the computer aside. At this time, the computer screen showed a map of the Las Vegas area, and on the map, there was a circle that was constantly emitting red light, covering a small area on the map. After seeing the marking of this area, Anna immediately wanted to lead the team members to chase the enemy, but was pulled back by Holly. Facing Anna's puzzled eyes, Harley began to explain to Anna. In fact, according to K's technology, it is not difficult to accurately locate the Mexican buyer leader. Although it is not as accurate as a dedicated tracking software, it is easy to find out which building the other party is in. This is why they can easily locate the warehouse that made Sherlock's broom so powerful. But this time it is obviously wrong, and the reason is very simple, because this time, it is obvious that these people have been instructed by a master, and I don't know what method they used, which caused Holly to not be able to track the boss's mobile phone at all. So Harley thought of a solution that was not a solution. As we all know, the main reason why our mobile phones can make calls is to rely on the surrounding base stations for signal communication. As long as the signal coverage area of the base station is wide enough, you will have a signal in this area. This is also the main reason why your mobile phone will have no signal when you walk in the deep mountains and forests or uninhabited areas, because those places are rarely visited and no one will install signal base stations. And Harley's method is based on these signal base stations. First, he hacked into the servers of all the communication companies in Las Vegas, marked the boss's mobile phone number and identity information as key targets, and wrote a program for early warning. Then with the help of the server, Harley obtained the base station distribution map of the entire Las Vegas, and then covered these base station distribution maps on the map of Las Vegas. The rest is just waiting. As long as the boss has not changed his mobile phone number, whether he turns off the phone to avoid tracking, or changes to a new phone or a new mobile phone number, as long as the phone number associated with the boss makes or receives a call, then the program that Harley has set up long ago will alarm and indicate which base station received the boss's mobile phone signal. The main reason why Harley held Anna was that you could only see which base station received the boss's signal, but you didn't know whether the boss was moving at this time. If you want to accurately locate the boss's position through the mobile phone number, at least 3 base stations are needed to complete the triangulation positioning method you see in the movie. So Harley meant to let Anna wait a little longer to see if there would be other base stations that captured the boss's mobile phone signal, which would be more convenient for direct positioning and not easy to alert the enemy. It must be said that, although Anna is very anxious now, what Harley said is very reasonable. On the one hand, the nuclear bomb is still unknown, and on the other hand, Uncle Tom doesn't know what the situation is, so if you can avoid alerting the enemy, it's best not to alert the enemy. Everyone stayed in the anxious atmosphere for another half an hour until the sky was bright. Anna couldn't sit still anymore and waved her hand to order the team to set off. The good news is that, because the position displayed by the computer is exactly diagonal to the position where Anna and others are now, they have to pass through the city this time. So Bruce, the unlucky guy, doesn't have to run to the front of the car as a car logo. The bad news is that, because of the number of people in the car, even though Bruce did not run to be the car logo, the fainted Bruce still did not have a proper seat and was stuffed into the trunk. But even so, there was still one person overloaded. After several discussions, the tracking team could only do the same as when they came to the mansion, with Anna driving the car, the largest Reinhardt sitting in the co-pilot, Sherlock sitting in the middle with Harley in the back seat, and Brad and Laura sandwiched Sherlock on the left and right. How to say it? I hope there will be no inspection. Otherwise the car is obviously overloaded. Plus there is an unconscious person in the trunk. Once it is inspected, it will be really fun. Fortunately, God still takes care of everyone, and the group arrived safely at the location of the base station shown on the map. In other words, if the group of buyers did not move, then they are now within a 3-kilometer radius of this base station. Anna quickly began to arrange the tasks and search in groups. Brad and Reinhardt were in one group. They had rich combat experience and the best physical strength. They could advance or retreat when encountering problems. They were responsible for searching the left area. Anna, Laura and Sherlock were in one group, responsible for the right area. Harley didn't have much combat power, and there was an unconscious Bruce in the car, so Harley was assigned the task of paying attention to whether there were other base stations on the computer that captured the boss's signal, while driving within the range of the base station to patrol and see if she could find the boss's car. Of course, in order to prevent Bruce from waking up and making trouble, Anna also kindly handed Harley a wooden hammer and drew an X on Bruce's forehead with an eyebrow pencil, and told Harley that if Bruce woke up, she could use the hammer to hit the marked position to make Bruce quiet again. Listening to Anna's solemn words and looking at the heavy wooden hammer in her hand, Harley's mouth twitched and nodded, agreed, and drove away. Seeing Harley leave, everyone quickly entered the state of work and began to search the buildings within the range according to Anna's orders. A full half hour passed, and Sherlock followed Anna and Laura. Apart from seeing the diversity of human species, he gained nothing. In just half an hour, Sherlock and his 2 companions prevented 2 cases against women's will, stopped 4 robberies, found 2 yellow dens, and a laundry detergent manufacturing den. The most important thing is that they also witnessed the big hands of the eyes, who led the team to rush into the laundry detergent manufacturing den to collect taxes. It can only be said that it is very characteristic of the United States. Just when Anna was about to be driven crazy by these messy things, Brad's voice came from the communicator. "Boss, I think you should come over and take a look." As Brad's voice fell, the 3 people's mobile phones received the location information sent by Brad at the same time. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 432, Hell Scroll, Part 2. With the location given by Brad, Anna did not hesitate, and immediately led Sherlock and Laura to rush towards Brad's location. When they arrived near the location released by Brad, the 3 of them saw the vehicle parked nearby at a glance, which was the vehicle that Harley was responsible for driving. At this time, Harley was squatting at the gate of a factory that looked like an abandoned factory, spitting rainbows. That look alone could make people feel uncomfortable, and Brad was standing beside Harley at this time, patting Harley's back gently with a complicated expression. When the 3 of them got closer, Brad said to the 3 of them, "Reinhardt and I found this place." Reinhardt went to see if there were any clues around. After hearing Brad's report, Anna was about to take the lead and walk into the factory, but Brad grabbed her arm. Anna looked back in confusion, only to see that Brad's face was changing like he was performing a face-changing performance, and it was unpredictable. After a while, Brad let go of Anna's arm and said to everyone, "Be prepared, the situation inside may be the worst you have ever seen in your life." To be honest, Sherlock didn't take Brad's advice seriously. After all, I have been in the universe, selling arms in the divine domain, fighting aliens, and fighting the Ten Rings. How bad can it be? Sherlock felt that he had encountered the 2 worst eggs in the entire Marvel world. What could be worse than facing a toad jumping on the instep, a black-brined egg that didn't bite but disgusted people, and a boiled egg that wanted to kill you for talking and laughing? But when Sherlock followed Anna and really walked into the abandoned factory, Sherlock realized that he had said it a little too early, and Bruce was a little euphemistic. This place can no longer be described as bad. To be more accurate, it should be called a picture scroll of hell. The wide factory was covered with human limbs and debris. Yes, you read it right, it was covered. Blood mixed with minced meat almost evenly smeared the entire factory building nearly 2 meters below. The strong smell of blood mixed with the smell of human excrement hid my nose. Except for the small area at the door that was soaked in blood and looked clean, you couldn't even find a complete human tissue in this hell-like environment. broken heads, broken limbs, scattered internal organs mixed with blood, and minced meat together created this hellish scene. It formed a sharp contrast with the dilapidated and ordinary upper part of the factory building. The sunlight shone through the holes in the roof and formed beams of light on the ground that was like hell, which further strengthened this strong contrast. At the bottom was the hell that everyone feared and hated. In the middle was the broken and helpless human world, and at the top was the sun full of holiness and beauty of heaven. Combined with the surrounding environment, it was a picture scroll of hell with a strong sense of irony and artistic sense. Whether it was Sherlock, Anna or Laura, the three of them were so shocked by the scene that they couldn't find any adjectives to describe the shocking scene in front of them. Just when the three were in shock, Brad and Rian had pushed the door and walked in. Rian had looked at the three people standing there with a responsible look on his face. After thinking for a while, he said, "Boss, I found the buyer's vehicle on the other side of the factory. Harley has confirmed that it is the car of the group of buyers who disappeared." Reinhardt's words were like a switch, and the three of them woke up from the shocking hell picture in front of them. At the same time as waking up, there was also a strong physiological feeling of nausea and a feeling of grief for being in hell. The three of them didn't pay any attention to Reinhardt's report. They covered their mouths and pushed away Reinhardt and Brad, who were standing at the door, and rushed in. After a while, the sound of vomiting was heard outside. Reinhardt and Brad looked at each other, and their eyes were equally helpless. After all, they were not much better than them when they first saw this scene. After sighing helplessly, the two turned around and left the factory, ran behind the three people, and began to take care of them as they did with Harley at the beginning. After a while, the three people barely recovered, and Anna even suppressed her nausea and raised her head to ask about the details here. Reinhardt naturally reported everything to Anna. In fact, their side was similar to Anna's at the beginning, and various situations occurred frequently, constantly witnessing the unique national conditions and environment of the Eagle Source. But soon the two felt that something was wrong. After all, according to the normal thinking of normal people, most of these guys who do illegal activities like dark corners with few people, after all, their work cannot see the sun. But considering that the other party is a lunatic who can buy nuclear bombs, since he is a lunatic, then you can never think about this group of people according to normal thinking. So the two of them immediately changed their minds, and then caught a hapless guy who wanted to rob them, and began to torture him. After a beating, the gangster explained the surrounding environment clearly. Among them was the information of the abandoned factory. This abandoned factory was originally a place for young people nearby to express themselves and explore, and the graffiti everywhere in the factory can prove this. But a month ago, this abandoned factory was suddenly acquired by someone, and the most important thing is that this mysterious acquirer also hired a large number of security guards and hounds to patrol around the factory. Soon this abandoned factory became a forbidden place for young people. But a week ago, these security guards and dogs disappeared all of a sudden. Some brave young people saw that there were no patrol personnel in the factory and wanted to go back in to see if they could find their former playground. But they were scared out by the weird sounds in the factory. According to the description of the brave young people, after they went deep into the factory, they heard endless screams and cries for help from men, women, children and the elderly. This also made the group of young people believe that there must be something unclean here, which led to the disappearance of the group of security guards with dogs overnight. After such rumors spread, no one approached the entire factory. Only Bruce and Reinhardt, who did not believe in ghosts and gods, felt that there was definitely something wrong with the factory at the first time. After the two carefully entered the factory, they quickly found this hell scroll and reported it directly to Anna. Anna knew everything that happened afterwards. Holly drove over and reacted the same as them, followed by Anna and her group. Just as Reinhardt had just finished speaking, and before Anna could say anything, a mobile phone ring suddenly rang in the factory behind everyone. In the empty and quiet abandoned factory, the ringing of the phone seemed unusually harsh. Chapter 433, Unlucky Reinhardt. The moment the phone rang, everyone had a bad premonition. When they repeatedly confirmed that the phone ringing came from the hell-like factory behind them, the bad premonition deep in everyone's heart reached a climax. Everyone looked at each other, and this look could be said to be different. After all, no one wanted to step into the hell-like scene behind them and desecrate the corpse again. Harley's reaction speed was the fastest. Seeing that everyone had their own thoughts and were paying attention to their own little things, Harley rolled her eyes at the first time and fell directly into Sherlock's arms. Although Sherlock had changed, it must be said that his reaction speed was still very fast. The first time Harley fell into his arms, he understood Harley's intention. Sherlock hugged Harley's fallen body and then began to shake Harley's body frantically and began to cry. "Holly, Holly, what's wrong with you? Wake up." That cry was so sad that anyone who heard it would cry. Sherlock might not have cried like that even when the parents of this body died. To be honest, if Sherlock's face was not angry and his hands did not do any first aid except shaking gently, everyone might really believe that Sherlock was very worried about Holly. However, the remaining 4 people did not say much about the 2 people's little thoughts. After all, one was a hacker technician responsible for logistics for K, and the other was not even K's man. Even if the 2 of them gave up, everyone could not find anything wrong. After collectively letting the 2 go, the remaining 4 people looked at each other again. Just a glance, Anna and Laura instantly formed an alliance. After clearing her throat, Anna said to the 2, "Gentlemen, now is the time to show your gentlemanly manners. That's right, you certainly don't want 2 weak women like us to step into such a filthy place and bear the crime of desecrating corpses, right?" After Anna finished speaking, Laura didn't even forget to add a sentence, but it was obvious that Laura's little calculation basically failed. After hearing Laura's words, the men on the other side were all extremely shocked, especially Brad, whose eyes almost popped out. After a while, Brad directly complained without any politeness. "Good man, Laura, how could you say the word weak woman? Look at the 2 of you. Anna is as strong as a female gorilla. That guy kills people in piles when he fights, and he has even worked with the Avengers. How can this thing have anything to do with weak women? As for you, let alone you, we are all members of K's action team. Although we are not in the same team, we have cooperated so many times. When did you feel that we gentlemen treated you as a woman? The testosterone in your body is higher than that of all us men. Except for not growing a beard and not being able to masturbate. How else are you worse than us men? Reinhardt is more feminine than you. That's right. Speaking of which, I'm much more feminine than you, Laura. At least, since I met you, I have never seen you wearing a pretty little skirt. And both of you, have you ever heard of a saying? Gentlemen stick to the first rule, ladies first. Reinhardt added a sentence, not to be outdone. Although Reinhardt himself disagreed with Brad's words, Reinhardt is more feminine than you. He just simply liked small skirts, not motherly, but now, under the pressure of the situation, even if he didn't admit that he was a mother, he had to pretend to be a mother and follow Brad's words. After all, no one really wanted to step into the hell behind them again. On the other hand, Laura and Anna, Brad's long rants successfully broke the defense of the 2 ladies. Anna, female gorilla. Me. I'm strong. Laura, Reinhardt is more feminine than me. I'm a man. The 2 ladies rolled up their sleeves viciously and looked at the men opposite with gritted teeth. It was obvious that, if the 2 did not give some explanation, a fight would break out in the next second. On the other side, Sherlock and Harley stopped acting when Anna and Brad started to confront each other. They were just like the slag in the melon field, eating melons excitedly. Seeing that the 2 sides were about to fight, Harley blurted out a sentence. "Hurry up, the call has a time limit." As Harley said this, the 2 groups of people who were about to fight instantly shifted their attention to Harley and Sherlock, who were hiding on the side. Seeing the 2 groups of people rolling up their sleeves looking at them at the same time, Sherlock and Harley were stunned for a moment, and then the next second Harley closed her eyes and tilted her head to continue pretending to be fainted. Sherlock's reaction was also very quick. He continued to hug Harley and started crying. "Harley, what's wrong with you? How can I live without you?" Sherlock howled while carefully checking whether Anna and Brad were still paying attention to him. Harley, who was pretending to be fainted, was not honest either. She always carefully squinted her eyes and stared at Anna and Brad. Then these 2 fools were very strange. Every time the dog observed secretly, they found that everyone was still watching them. Then they would be frightened and start to perform more vigorously. When the dog observed secretly, they would be frightened again. Seeing that the two seemed to be having a lot of fun, whether it was Anna, Laura, Reinhardt or Brad, they all felt speechless. How to say it, there is always a feeling that you have to spoil your own stupid child. In desperation, everyone unanimously decided to ignore the two stupid people for the time being and quickly discuss a countermeasure to determine which unlucky guy went in to take the phone. At this time, Reinhardt put forward a very constructive suggestion. Why don't we guess the ding shell? It's all based on luck. The loser goes in to get the phone. It's fair, no one will cheat. The loser is not allowed to cheat. Agree ? 3 After everyone agreed, the 4 people stood in the 4 directions of east, west, south, and north. This time it was a personal battle. Everyone looked at the people around them vigilantly, as if they were afraid that others would cheat. Reinhardt took a deep breath and continued. Once again, cheating is absolutely not allowed. Whoever cheats will be directly judged as the loser. Do you understand? After the remaining 3 people nodded solemnly, they shouted in unison. Rock, paper, scissors. Well, then Reinhardt, who made this suggestion, unsurprisingly became the unlucky guy that no one wanted to be. Chapter 434, Unexpected Development. Looking at the cloth in his hand and the scissors in the hands of the other 3, Reinhardt really wanted to chop off his hand and throw it away. Lose with one blow. Lose with one blow. Damn, even if there were a few more Reinhardt wouldn't be so broken. As for refusing to pay, well, just think about it. You know, even if Reinhardt is strong, it's impossible to take on 3 people alone, not to mention that these 3 people are his teammates day and night. To put it bluntly, they really know what you are going to do as soon as you stick your butt out. Not to mention everyone, they even know the color of your underwear today. You can't resist at all. So Reinhardt can only hold his nose and think that he is unlucky. Half a minute later, Reinhardt was holding a bag in his hand, walking carefully on the ground, covered with broken limbs and bloody meat. The rest of the people chose to stand at the gate and cheer Reinhardt on. But for some reason, the cheers from his teammates sounded particularly harsh and hypocritical to Reinhardt. However, what made Reinhardt feel the most frustrated was not the stimulation from his teammates, but his own feet. Apart from the sticky and slippery feeling every time he stepped on, what made Reinhardt feel frustrated was that no matter how careful he was, he would inevitably step on something he shouldn't step on, such as eyeballs or bones. And every time there was a sound of broken bones or eyeballs being stepped on, Reinhardt couldn't help but feel nauseous, or the kind of physiological nausea that couldn't be suppressed at all. So poor Reinhardt could only walk a few steps and hold the brown paper bag in his hand and retch for a while and then continue to move forward. I don't know who put this phone. It was in the middle of the whole factory. In other words, unless Reinhardt can fly, the distance between the front door and the back door is the same. Fortunately, hard work pays off. In the end, Reinhardt found the phone that kept making sounds among a pile of broken meat and broken limbs. The phone was buried under a pile of debris and sealed tightly with a waterproof sealed bag. There was no problem at all. Reinhardt picked up the bag with a stick he picked up and successfully brought the bag back along his footprints. As soon as he returned to the outside, Reinhardt seemed to have lost all his strength and collapsed directly on the dirty ground outside the delivery room, while everyone's attention was completely attracted by the phone and the bag. Anna carefully cut open the sealed bag with a knife and took out the phone inside. The phone was still ringing at this time. After Anna and everyone looked at each other, she carefully answered the call and clicked the speaker, but did not speak. The person on the other side seemed to understand Anna's behavior and didn't care. After a short silence, he started talking to himself. Ah, Anna, you finally answered the phone. Well, let me think. Who picked up the phone? Ha. I know, Reinhardt, right? That strong man who likes to wear skirts has never had good luck. As the voice from the phone came out, the faces of the people present suddenly turned black. The reason was very simple. They were all familiar with this voice. Tom Yodel. What's going on? Why did you make this call? And what about the buyers and the nuclear bomb? Facing Anna's questioning, Uncle Tom didn't seem to be in a hurry at all. He still spoke to everyone with a relaxed and happy tone. Ah, do you still regard me as your teammate? What a touching friendship. How great it would be if those stupid officials of K were like you. Okay, let's get back to business. Anna, you are always like this, always throwing out countless questions when encountering things, but I have to admit that you are indeed a good person. There is no doubt about that. Let me answer your questions one by one. After all, you have too many questions. The group of Mexican buyers you mentioned are actually very simple. You have seen them a long time ago, right? The floor of the factory should be covered with them and their families. My bomb design will never go wrong. You know, I have been dismantling bombs all my life, and I can be said to be the person who knows bombs best in the world. Of course, you don't have to say anything. This group of people are not good birds, selling laundry detergent, killing people, kidnapping. As long as you can think of everything, this group of people has basically done it, so there are no innocent people. I can still guarantee this. As for the nuclear bomb you mentioned, well, it's right next to me now. I made a small change to it. It can almost be said that it is a masterpiece that uses all the knowledge about bombs I have learned in my life. Anna, while I still regard you as teammates, you should listen to me now and leave this city quickly. The sooner the better, the farther the better. All this has nothing to do with you, right? Tom, tell me, what happened? I will never allow my teammates to go astray. Tell me if there is any problem. I will help you solve it. Even if I can't solve it, there are still the Avengers. You know, I know them all. Anna almost roared at Tom on the other side of the phone. You know, Tom's words just now almost confirmed the worst thoughts in their hearts when they were in the mansion. Tom betrayed. Maybe all this was a farce planned by Tom. Anna is certainly not a fool. When Tom was talking to Anna, Anna gave Harley a look. Harley naturally understood what she meant and immediately turned on the computer and started typing. In the face of Anna's roar, Tom on the other side of the phone was silent. After a long while, Tom finally sighed and said, Anna, I'm old, so I call you children. In my eyes, you are all good children. Don't ask Harley to track down my location. You can't help me. This is a personal vendetta between Kay and me. Even if the Avengers come to the Langley building, they can't solve it. So listen to me, you are all good children. Leave Las Vegas now. Don't worry, neither Kane nor anyone else will cause you any trouble. I have already arranged everything. After saying that, Tom hung up the phone. The moment Tom hung up the phone, Anna's eyes were immediately on Holly. Holly. Found it. Excalibur Hotel. Chapter 435 A Different Uncle Tom. After determining Uncle Tom's location, Anna immediately called everyone to drive to the target location. However, this time, except for Anna who was driving, the car was particularly silent. Except for the sound of Harley tapping the keyboard, the only sound left was the sound of fingers sliding across the mobile phone screen. That's right, except for Harley who didn't know what she was doing, and Anna who was driving. Everyone was assigned a certain task, which was to watch the surveillance. After all, although they knew Uncle Tom's location, they didn't know where Uncle Tom was in the Excalibur Hotel. As we all know, in order to make money, Las Vegas hotels can be said to have gathered all the exciting, non-exciting, literary, and non-literary, illegal, and non-illegal services you can imagine. It can be said that the goal of, as long as you have enough money, you can satisfy everything you want here, is carried out to the end. The consequence of such a service attitude is that basically all Las Vegas hotels look the same, and the main highlight is the word big. It can be said that there is a gambling park, a literary theater, and even shopping malls and restaurants. It is as if everything on the largest cruise ships at sea has been moved to land. The result is that the internal passages are interconnected, like a maze. It is like looking for a needle in a haystack to find a person quietly in such a huge building. It is no exaggeration to say that, even if the entire K is called up and everyone is on their side, to conduct a carpet search of the hotel, it will take several days. So in order to find where Uncle Tom is in the hotel quickly, and without attracting the attention of other civilians, Holly thought of two ways. The first way is to find some key traffic surveillance, and ask his teammates to watch the reverse surveillance of these surveillance within 24 hours, to find the trace of Uncle Tom. As long as he can take a picture of Uncle Tom, Harley is confident that he can use the video and architectural composition to deduce where Uncle Tom is hiding in the hotel. Of course, this method is not without risks. The biggest risk is that Uncle Tom is an old K. Although he is not an outworker, he has seen pigs run over the years. Uncle Tom will definitely know such basic anti-reconnaissance methods. As long as Uncle Tom deliberately walks to a place without surveillance, such as an escape passage, then Harley's deduction will not be able to proceed. So to be on the safe side, Harley has another way, which is to hack into the hotel's reservation system to see if she can find Uncle Tom's room booking record. But this is not a simple matter. Unlike Harley, who easily obtained the server permissions of the surveillance and copied the surveillance video, the firewall of his grandmother's reservation system is as thick as her mother's city wall. It can be cracked, but it will take a lot of time. What made Harley angry was that she cursed loudly. After all, strictly speaking, surveillance videos are also privacy, and reservation systems are also privacy. They are all privacy. You are actually partial to one and neglect the other. One is protected, as if he is in a bunker, and the other is just for show. What is this? Scradina's privacy. It can be said that it is very consistent with the national conditions of the Eagle source. This is because there is no legal support. Otherwise, based on the hotel's double standards, Harley would have to go to the court to sue the hotel for privacy discrimination. Neither cracking nor viewing surveillance is a simple job. Even until Anna drove the car to the back door of the hotel, these two tasks were not completed. In desperation, Anna could only join the ranks of watching videos. With the addition of Anna, European Emperor, the speed of watching videos increased a lot. It can only be said that there is still a big difference between non-Africans and European emperors. Anna joined the ranks of watching videos and found Uncle Tom in the video within 5 minutes. It was a corridor leading to the elevator, and Uncle Tom was dragging a large silver suitcase in his hand. With the clue of Uncle Tom, Harley immediately stopped the intrusion work in his hands and began to deduce where Uncle Tom was hiding in the hotel, based on the figure of Uncle Tom that Anna saw. It was only a short time before Harley came to the conclusion and reported with a strange look on his face. Inside the special presidential suite on the top floor of the Excalibur Hotel, something is wrong. Tom has no intention of hiding anything at all. Anna couldn't care about what was wrong now. She asked Reinhardt, who was sitting in the co-pilot seat, to pick up Bruce, who was in an artificial coma in the trunk, and led everyone through the employee elevator to rush to the room where Uncle Tom was. After Reinhardt used Bruce as a battering ram to break open the door of Uncle Tom's room, poor Bruce, everyone was dumbfounded. The reason for being dumbfounded was very simple. They all began to doubt whether the person in front of them was Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom was wearing the most standard and sophisticated suit and dress at this time. All kinds of accessories were available, and his hair was not messy as before, but was neatly combed. His movements were very elegant, just like the ancient nobles in Europe enjoying the food on the table in front of him that looked expensive and tasted good. Combined with the floor-to-ceiling windows behind Uncle Tom that could see the panoramic view of Las Vegas, it even gave people a feeling that Uncle Bay had become the Godfather. Seeing this scene, Sherlock finally knew why Uncle Tom always hugged people at parties. If it were him, he would agree. Who could resist Uncle Bay's temptation? However, unlike Sherlock's wandering in the sky, Anna and the others were almost heartbroken after seeing Uncle Tom. The reason is also very simple, because between them and Uncle Tom, there is a piece of bulletproof glass with extremely exaggerated thickness and large area. Such a setting is actually very common in the top rooms of some top hotels. It is a safe house setting, which is specially set up by the hotel to protect those distinguished guests. There is no doubt that the Excalibur Hotel has done an exceptionally good job in this regard. In the best place in the whole room, a safe house is forcibly separated by bulletproof glass, which can even allow guests hiding inside to drink red wine and eat steak, smiling at the anxious enemies outside, and waiting for rescue elegantly. The reason why Anna and the others' hearts are almost sinking to the bottom of the valley is also very simple. Without heavy firepower, they want to break through the layer of glass in front of them to catch Tom and ask Sherlock about the nuclear bomb. It is undoubtedly a fantasy. Chapter 436 Tom's story. Anna, you didn't follow my advice and came to me directly. Tom gracefully put down the knife and fork in his hand and wiped his mouth with a napkin and said slowly, "Tom, what happened? Why did you kill so many people and betray Kay?" Anna asked directly without any hesitation. After all, although Uncle Tom was famous for being unreliable in Kay, as the oldest and longest serving person in Kay, Uncle Tom, who had no children in his life, had a very good relationship with Kay. Almost everyone in Kay had been taken care of by Uncle Tom, and even many young people were familiar with Kay's set of procedures by Uncle Tom. It can be said that Uncle Tom was a good patriarch in Kay, except for some weird little problems, and he was the kind of person who could get along with everyone. So when Uncle Tom killed all the buyers and took the nuclear bomb away, Anna and her group couldn't believe it. Betray Kay? No, Anna, it's not me who betrayed Kay, it's Kay who betrayed me. After hearing Anna's question, Tom's face showed a rare trace of anger. He threw the napkin on the table, stood up, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, and said to Anna, "You know, Anna, I've worked for Kay all my life. I've seen 5 directors go, and it's no exaggeration to say that I saw with my own eyes how Kay's headquarters in Langley was built bit by bit to what it is today. Even the explosion-proof facilities in the entire headquarters were designed and built with my participation. I'm the oldest contributor in Kay. This cannot be denied, right? But how did Kay treat me? Do you know how those politicians with nostrils on the top of their heads arranged me? Let me tell you. They want to use this purge against Hydra to make me, those old guys who know too much, disappear. Yes, you heard it right. Disappear. Strict confidentiality agreements, high leakage costs, and 24-hour surveillance for the rest of your life. Once the contents of the confidentiality agreement are violated, they will be directly wiped out. Okay, as an agent for a lifetime, I agree with the above policies. After all, you know what we do, and it really needs to be kept confidential. But what I can't accept is that these damn politicians, in order to pay less pension, actually offered us old guys a low price that you can't even imagine. He doesn't want us to retire. He wants to use poverty to force us to make mistakes and then use legitimate reasons to wipe us out. I don't accept it. Anna, I absolutely cannot accept that the organization I have been loyal to for my whole life would treat me like this. When Uncle Tom said this, he was already visibly angry, and he roared hysterically at Anna and her group on the other side of the bulletproof glass. And Anna didn't expect that Kay would treat his own people like this, especially Tom, who had worked hard all his life. Everyone stood there, not knowing what to say for a moment. Looking at Anna's reaction opposite, Tom also realized that he had lost his composure. After tidying up his clothes that were a little wrinkled because of anger and some scattered hair, Tom continued calmly, "Since those stupid politicians want me to disappear, why don't I plan a grand funeral for myself? For a man who has been defusing bombs all his life, what could be more romantic than dying under a nuclear bomb? So I kidnapped the families of a group of gangsters and detained these people in the warehouse you just went to, and used these people's lives as a threat to manipulate this group of evil gangsters to find Anton, that idiot, to buy nuclear bombs. Everything should have gone smoothly. Under my command, neither the gangsters nor Anton would be discovered by anyone. But that idiot Anton. He actually fooled a group of young idiots playing with digital currency in order to make more money. The transaction that should have been silent was made known to everyone by this group of idiots. To be honest, when I was carrying out this mission, I even gave up my plan. After all, if Anton was caught, my next plan could not be implemented at all. But what I didn't expect was that the situation turned around. Anna, when I saw the nuclear bomb that Anton sold to the group of idiots, I knew it was fake. So I ordered the gang to do everything they could to get the nuclear bomb. And I planned everything here. According to my plan, there should be at least 3 or 4 casualties under my pot of mushrooms. In this way, plus my unconscious self, Anna, you can't continue to track the nuclear bomb by yourself, and you can also withdraw from this game between me and the top leaders of K with peace of mind. But I never thought that, Anna, you would be so tenacious, and there is also a brat with a magical potion, so that you can continue to complete this mission. Speaking of it, everything may be God's will. Tom seemed to have a sense of relief when he said this. Looking at the people on the other side of the bulletproof glass, there was a trace of guilt in his eyes. After all, no matter what, it was he who pulled these lovely teammates into the game between himself and the top leaders of K. But it was obvious that some people's focus was not on the game between Tom and the K executives, but on some strange things, such as Sherlock. So you are always awake. Then you were awake when you had a stomachache? I took Harley to wash your ass for more than half an hour, and you actually told me that you were awake? Come out. If I don't sew up your asshole, you'll be considered tight today. As soon as Sherlock said this, the tense atmosphere just now disappeared in an instant, and everyone present kept looking at Holly, Sherlock and Tom with strange eyes. Even Tom, who was used to seeing big storms, couldn't help blushing and muttering in a low voice. Ahem, I really couldn't hold it back. Although Tom's voice was very low, in such a quiet room, everyone could still hear it. It would have been better if Tom didn't say it. As soon as this came out, Sherlock was like the last night demon in the movie I'm Legend, and he hit the bulletproof glass all of a sudden. Damn it, this is the first time in my life that I washed someone's ass, and you actually told me that I was pretending? This is intolerable. Even if my uncle can tolerate it, my aunt can't. Sherlock was banging on the bulletproof glass frantically, and he kept telegraphing, spewing out all the soul-touching dirty words he had learned from the quality captain. Everyone who heard it was very upset, and they kept shouting in their hearts, "Fuck, is this possible?" Fortunately, Anna still had some reason. After all, there was no time to waste on these details. She asked Reinhardt and Brad to go forward and hold the furious Sherlock. After seeing Sherlock being held down, Anna looked at Tom on the other side of the bulletproof glass and said seriously, "Uncle Tom, I understand your idea, but I don't understand your approach. Any problem can be discussed. We are teammates. So I still have to stop you. After all, if the nuclear bomb really explodes, it will affect too many innocent people. These people should not become victims of your game with those stupid and selfish politicians. So, tell me, where is the nuclear bomb?" Chapter 437, Sherlock, the King of Despair? Part 1. Uncle Tom seemed to have expected what Anna said. He smiled bitterly and pointed to a large cardboard box on a table outside the safe house. After doing all this, no matter what everyone said, Tom refused to communicate. He sat back calmly, restored his elegant appearance like Laocoon, and continued to eat. When Anna and others carefully took away the cardboard box, everyone understood why Tom told Anna the location of the nuclear bomb so calmly. The reason is very simple. Uncle Tom made a magical transformation to the nuclear bomb. You know, Uncle Tom is an expert in bombs and explosives in the whole K. No one even knows that Uncle Tom's fame in the bomb circle even attracted the then SHIELD, who wanted to invite Uncle Tom to join SHIELD. If Uncle Tom had not been very fond of K at that time, people now probably wouldn't be able to see Uncle Tom's taillights. Uncle Tom, who stayed at K, was no ordinary man. Looking at the 4-digit bomb disposal times in Uncle Tom's life, he still had no missing parts. He could be called a legend. It is no exaggeration to say that Uncle Tom had been involved in everything from the dismantling and handling of IEDs made by the guys in the Middle East to the maintenance of the Militia 3 in Sherlock's home. Uncle Tom's name was even circulated in the bomb circle. When you are making a bomb, you'd better pray not to meet Tom. Otherwise the god of bombs will cut off the fuse of your bomb with his own hands. Is the best proof. Just like a coin, if there is a front side, there will naturally be a backside. Uncle Tom's bomb disposal technology is so awesome. If Uncle Tom wants to make a bomb, it is estimated that it is difficult for anyone to survive safely from the bomb made by Uncle Tom. And now in front of Anna and others is Uncle Tom's top masterpiece in his life, a nuclear bomb that has been modified by Uncle Tom. Just look at the devices exposed outside the nuclear bomb. You can know the mercury vibration detonator, the ball balance detonator. Just these two devices outside can basically confirm one thing: no one can move this thing without detonating this nuclear bomb. And under these two deadly things, there are countless wires like a tangled mess, and the countdown device that will kill people. Although there are still nearly 4 hours on the countdown, the nuclear bomb in front of you with a variety of detonation methods is enough to scare people. The people present can even think with their heels that this nuclear bomb must have at least 5 ways to detonate. Not only that, it is estimated that there are unknown connections between the various detonation methods. It can be said that this deadly thing in front of you, except for the maker Uncle Tom, no one can dismantle it. Tom. Anna just shouted Tom's name and was interrupted by Tom raising his hand before she finished speaking. Stop talking, Anna. If I were you, I would lead your friends and teammates to leave immediately. Don't worry, this incident will not involve you. I have already explained this in the call with the senior management. When he said this, Tom seemed to remember something, raised his hand to look at the watch on his wrist and continued. Oh, by the way, the countdown above should still have 4 hours, but that time is just for reference. You should not have 4 hours to escape. Believe me, the bomb disposal experts hired by those stupid politicians will definitely detonate the nuclear bomb in front of you. Of course, in order to put the blame on these damn politicians, I arranged a live broadcast in the room, and the live broadcast will start before the running dogs of those politicians arrive. Believe me, this time, they will never dare and cannot manipulate the media. I'm not alone. When he said this, Tom even smiled mischievously and showed everyone the detonation button hidden in his trouser pocket. But unlike Uncle Tom's elegance and calmness, every time Uncle Tom said one more word, Anna and others' faces turned pale. When Uncle Tom showed the detonator in his hand to everyone, even Reincarnated, the black man, turned pale as if he had changed his race. Anna was in a bad state at this time, but Anna obviously had not given up. The last action with Sherlock made Anna know that she would go on her own in good times and take revenge in bad times. When she was in a desperate situation, the most effective person was often the fool next to her. That's right, when faced with such a desperate situation that seemed impossible to solve, the first thing Anna thought of was Sherlock, who had magical powers. At this time, Anna was extremely glad that she had lowered her face to ask Sherlock for help, because she was afraid that the group of weirdos around her would cause troubles that she couldn't solve. Anna almost placed all her hopes on Sherlock. And what was Sherlock doing at this time, who had no idea that he had become the hope of the whole village? Well, Sherlock was holding up his phone and staring at the fluctuations of the imaginary picture caused by radiation while filming the nuclear bomb in front of him. As for why Sherlock was taking photos and recording videos with the nuclear bomb, the reason was also very simple. It is well known that Sherlock's family has 2 real intercontinental missiles. As the world's first private organization with nuclear strike capabilities, Sherlock is used to seeing nuclear bombs that are almost as tall as a building. Now this nuclear bomb, that is only the size of a suitcase, is the first time Sherlock has seen it. According to Sherlock's idea, that has become a melon, being able to shrink a nuclear bomb that destroys a city into the size of a suitcase, and being able to carry it alone is already outrageous enough. If this technology was put in the previous life, it would definitely be a king bomb. This thing is probably what the guys on the hometown front in the Middle East dream of. If this technology is obtained by the group of people on the hometown front who are good at using daily necessities to modify weapons, well, nuclear weapons self-destructing infantry, just thinking about it is enough to feel exciting. Looking at Sherlock, who was holding his phone with a smile on his face and wondering what he was thinking, Anna finally couldn't help but slap Sherlock on the head and yelled at him, "Stop smiling like that and think about what to do. Otherwise, we will all die here. Even if we don't die, we may face lifelong pursuit." Chapter 438, Sherlock, the King of Despair, Part 2. Facing the furious Anna, Sherlock didn't know what he was thinking. He always felt a little scared. He subconsciously shrank his head, rubbing the head that Anna slapped, and muttered in dissatisfaction, "You hit my head. The potion has already turned into a melon. What if you keep hitting me? You will never get married with your tigress look. Prepare to live alone for the rest of your life." "What did you say?" Anna obviously didn't notice what Sherlock was mumbling. She stared at Sherlock and questioned him. Looking at Anna, who was like a tigress, Sherlock was startled and waved his hands at Anna. "Nothing, nothing, I'm just thinking about how to dismantle this thing." After listening to Sherlock's words, Anna rolled her eyes at Sherlock and urged Sherlock to move faster. The interaction between Anna and Sherlock successfully attracted the attention of everyone present, including Uncle Tom, who was eating. After all, except Uncle Tom, everyone present had seen the magical abilities of Sherlock. But with Sherlock's inexplicable magical abilities alone, everyone couldn't imagine how Sherlock would dismantle this nuclear bomb. That couldn't be dismantled at all. Well, let alone everyone. Even Sherlock himself didn't know how to dismantle it. He held his head and started thinking about how he should deal with this thing. Seeing Sherlock holding his head and thinking, everyone tacitly chose not to disturb this magical boy and quietly stepped aside. Seeing everyone's look, even Tom stopped his hand curiously and stood next to the bulletproof glass to see how this little guy who could be called his grandson dismantled his masterpiece. And what was Sherlock thinking? To be honest, Sherlock is also confused now. Among the magic that can be remembered, Sherlock doesn't know which magic can dismantle a nuclear bomb. Aunt Roland's book doesn't write what kind of relationship between the magic world and nuclear bombs. As for using physical methods to dismantle the bomb, let alone, in the memory, that can be remembered now, although I vaguely remember that Price seems to have taught me how to dismantle a bomb. But the bomb disposal process that impressed Sherlock, and he could still remember, was to stand a little further away, then fire a howitzer or throw a grenade at the bomb, and it would explode directly. Well, obviously, the thing in front of him could not be dealt with in the only way he remembered. Although throwing a grenade could also solve the problem, it could also solve the entire Las Vegas. After thinking for a long time, Sherlock finally decided to take a gamble. The next second, a familiar magic wand appeared in Sherlock's hand and caused a burst of exclamations, including Anna. The reason why others exclaimed was very simple. They recognized what the magic wand in Sherlock's hand was. No one thought that the simpleton boy who had been with him all night and had some magical powers was the most mysterious wizard among the Avengers. The reason why Anna exclaimed was also very simple. Although Sherlock never told Anna that he was the wizard among the Avengers from beginning to end, he even found a wizard to act when he was on a mission with Anna last time. But Anna still instinctively felt that, since Sherlock and the wizard had such a good relationship, the wizard would definitely teach Sherlock a few tricks. Anna also invited Sherlock, based on this idea, and wanted Sherlock to be a safety bolt, in case she and Sherlock encountered something that neither she nor Sherlock could handle. She could call someone, referring to the wizard. The reason why Anna was not surprised at all when Sherlock used those magical abilities after turning into a melon was that Anna was sure that the wizard would definitely teach Sherlock a few tricks. But the facts were still beyond Anna's cognition. Anna never thought that Sherlock was actually the wizard himself. After all, the magic wand in the wizard's hand has almost become a symbol of the wizard's identity, especially after the New York War. This thing is a must-have toy for almost every child. And Sherlock had no intention of paying attention to the thoughts of the few people behind him. He raised the magic wand in his hand towards the nuclear bomb and decided to take a gamble. Disarm you. That's right, the way Sherlock chose to take a gamble was to disarm you. Well, how should I put it? After all, the main explosion of the nuclear bomb is only the two pieces of enriched uranium inside. According to Sherlock's idea, these two things must be considered as weapons, right? What? Why not restore it to its original state? Just kidding. Sherlock just didn't remember that there was such a spell. But even if he remembered it, Sherlock probably wouldn't dare to use it. God knows what kind of a mess this suitcase-sized nuclear bomb in front of him would be restored to after a restore spell. If it is restored to its original state before Tom's magic modification, it would be fine. What if it is really restored to its original state? Just based on the content of enriched uranium, if it is restored to the form of uranium ore, it will not solve the problem, but a disaster. Isn't this thing Earth Escape Earth Flow River, radiation version? Remember this, if you travel through Naruto, you can use it as a reference. It is a double attack of physical and magic. Very good. I have strayed off topic. Let's get back to the scene. After Sherlock recited the spell to remove your weapons, a huge red light shot out from Sherlock's wand and headed for the nuclear bomb not far away. When the red light from the wand hit the nuclear bomb began to tremble violently under the horrified eyes of everyone. Logically, under such trembling, the mercury detonator on the modified nuclear bomb should have detonated the nuclear bomb long ago, but for some reason, the nuclear bomb was not affected at all under such violent trembling. Everyone's heart was lifted at this moment, and they stared at the scene in front of them without blinking, as if they were afraid of missing any scene. Under the surprised gaze of everyone, the next moment, the edge of the violently trembling nuclear bomb suddenly broke apart, and two black semicircular fist-sized metal balls flew out at once under the effect of Sherlock's magic. Fuck. Seeing the two things flying out, Sherlock shouted fuck, and ran out without any hesitation. After seeing Sherlock running away, the rest of the people looked at the two semicircular metal balls flying in the air, one on the left, and one on the right, and seemed to have thought of something. For a while, the sound of fuck continued, and everyone rushed out of the house in a coordinated and crazy manner. Even Tom was no exception. The moment he saw the two metal balls, Tom opened the door of the safe house and rushed out. After all, anyone who has studied physics in high school knows what those two things are. They are enriched uranium. Looking around the world, it is difficult to find something with a higher radioactivity value than these two things. 1 second for cancer, 2 seconds for soup, 3 or 4 seconds for green light in the bones. Are you kidding me? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 439 Follow-up Action. I can only say that Anna is worthy of being Anna. When Sherlock made such a mess, she did not forget to clean up Sherlock's ass. She smashed the fire alarm button in the corridor and evacuated the passers-by in the entire building. She didn't even have time to take care of Uncle Tom, who rushed out after everyone. Reinhardt and Laura couldn't stand it anymore, and they worked together to detain Uncle Tom. As for the rest of the things, it had nothing to do with Sherlock. Sherlock was taken away from the scene by Brad. As for why it was Brad instead of Holly, how to say it, I can only say that Brad is not suitable to appear in front of outsiders now, and you never need to underestimate the greed of those stupid politicians in the Eagle Source. If this group of people saw Brad's current appearance, I dare not say anything else, but it is certain that the laboratory will be destroyed. But strictly speaking, the messy things such as Anna's wrangling with the top management and the wrangling between the top management and the White House have nothing to do with Sherlock. In the whole operation, the only victim is probably the hotel selected by Uncle Tom. This wave belongs to the pure people sitting at home, and the pot comes from the sky. After all, as a place to attract top rich people, the room with the safe house was turned into a nuclear contamination facility by Sherlock's weapon. It is estimated that it will not be unsealed for 100 or 80 years. Even the rooms above, below, left, right and around this room have suffered and become isolation rooms. Well, I hope that the funds of the government are sufficient to compensate for the losses of the hotel. After Sherlock was taken away by Brad, the two found a small hotel and took it to the end of the countdown. After the effect of the entry ended and Sherlock got his IQ back, Sherlock was in a bad mood. How to say it, it feels like you are drunk, but your mobile phone took a picture of you being drunk and forcing you to watch it. It's very embarrassing. Sherlock didn't even say hello and directly opened a portal and fled in Brad's surprised eyes. Do you think it's over? No, it's far from that simple. Such a big thing, and it also involves a hotspot like a nuclear leak. The unscrupulous media of the Eagle Source are like sharks that smell blood. They all came together almost in an instant. Agents, nuclear bombs, arms sales, no matter which one is a hotspot, this group of media that prioritizes traffic will naturally not let it go. It took less than 48 hours, with the help of money, to almost clearly understand the movements of Anna and others that night. It can be said that except for the color and style of underwear that everyone wore that night, everything else was made clear, and then it was repeatedly broadcast on TV. What? Confidential? Haha, don't joke. Do you expect this group of unscrupulous media that can make unscrupulous reality shows such as Cuckold Show and Find Dad Show for traffic to keep secrets? Isn't that just like expecting your boss to abide by the labor law. Pure nonsense. Under the strong publicity of these media, Anna and her group can be said to have enjoyed the treatment of superheroes and were forced to become famous. Moreover, in contrast to the Avengers, the strange little habits of Anna and her group were even promoted as down-to-earth performances. Others did not know, but Sherlock at home was very annoyed. Of course, although the actions of Anna and others were exposed, it did not mean that there was no trick. The biggest trick was to hide Sherlock's existence in the whole action. All the things that were done by Sherlock's magic were glossed over in a vague way, but it is understandable to think about it. After all, the actions of Anna and others have been exposed by this group of media, so the senior executives of the group of K might as well go with the flow and successfully complete the transaction with some media, after paying a certain price and promise. After all, it is the credit of saving a city anyway. If the publicity is proper, it is not inferior to the extent that the Avengers saved New York at that time. In the face of such a huge achievement, it is normal for the K executives to want to take all the credit and not let Sherlock, a farmer, participate in it, although Sherlock has no intention of participating in this cake sharing party. Of course, friends who have watched House of Cards should know what kind of character the group of executives of Eagle Source are. Just when the K executives were immersed in such a huge achievement and were overjoyed to share the cake, there were always some people who couldn't stand it and wanted to mix shit in this cake, and they succeeded. This shit is Uncle Tom, the culprit of everything. Under the propaganda of the rival, Uncle Tom was portrayed as a fallen hero who dared to resist the unscrupulous boss and even threatened the unscrupulous rules set by the boss with his life. In order to let Uncle Tom confirm this personality that he himself didn't know, these guys also retrieved part of Uncle Tom's resume to make a fuss and triggered a large group of Virgin Mary parades. Anyway, after all the fighting, frontline employees like Anna benefited in the end, especially those old employees like Tom and Kay. Even Tom, the culprit, was given a lighter sentence with the support of a group of saints. He was only sentenced to 2 years in prison, suspended for 1 year, and strictly prohibited from contacting any substances that could cause irritability. How should I put it? The policies that Tom opposed were actually completed in such a dramatic way, and it even made people feel amused. In this farce, perhaps the only ones who have a consensus are Sherlock and Anna. I will never participate, Sherlock, Anna, to participate in the action again. This guy's definitely unlucky. It has to be said that the two of them have a full understanding to a certain extent. As for what happened to Sherlock after he went back, well, I'm not afraid to say that Sherlock is afraid. Yes, you read that right. The main reason why Sherlock left Las Vegas as soon as he woke up was because he was afraid. On the one hand, he was afraid of the effect of his pit father for the things he did after he turned into a melon. To be honest, if it weren't for Anna and the others, the boss of the villain might not be Uncle Tom but Sherlock. On the other hand, what he was afraid of was the bonus that the reality gem would give him. Yes, you read that right. It was the reality gem. To be honest, after getting the blessing of the reality gem, Sherlock was very happy. After all, he really felt that he had become stronger. But this time, after Sherlock saw the power of the reality gem unconsciously, Sherlock was really scared. It can turn a broom into an almost omnipotent firearm unconsciously, and it also retains the poor penetration of the spell. Sherlock didn't even dare to imagine what would happen if he couldn't control the reality gem one day. Sherlock's version of wonder and vision. Just thinking about it, the reality gem combined with his own magic is enough to make Sherlock's scalp numb. It seems that the trip to Camotage must be put on the agenda. Although Sherlock was still a little scared of seeing the boiled eggs on the opposite side, for the sake of his future happy life, Sherlock still had to overcome what he should overcome. After all, the only place Sherlock knew that could play with the Infinity Gems was Camotage. Chapter 440, Supreme Mage Stephen. Of course, Sherlock did not get nothing out of it. The essence of brain replacement is not to grow a new brain, but to let the brain occupy most of the brain power to deal with and sort out the things that were not understood before. So when Sherlock came back, he found a surprising thing. That is, his magic level has greatly improved. Many theories that he couldn't understand before were suddenly understood. Sherlock couldn't help but sigh. The new brain is really useful. The most typical ones are the sealing magic in HP, fire escape bodyguard and fire god opening the way. Sherlock can now perform these two magics at will. What? Sherlock created a 100-meter long fire escape bodyguard during the Battle of New York, so why can't he perform them at will? No, 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 that was not a random performance. That time was purely a miracle that relied on Sherlock's powerful magic. Take the simplest floating spell as an example. The so-called random performance is accompanied by your deepening understanding of magic, allowing you to get rid of the process of casting magic according to the textbook, which is to wave and shake, and put the emphasis on the back of the spell. As your understanding of this magic deepens, you can get rid of all this and cast spells silently. If you understand it a little more, you can cast spells with just a wand. You can even control the speed, direction, and height of the floating objects at will, and ignore the weight and volume of the objects to a certain extent. Don't think these things are simple. In fact, even in the HP world, there are only a handful of wizards who can achieve this level. The reason why feathers are used in class is not without basis. The heavier the object to be floated, the more magic power is consumed. This is an unchanging iron law. In short, if Sherlock's previous level is roughly equivalent to the level of the professor in Hogwarts, then after this baptism of terms, Sherlock has already stepped into the door of Dumbledore's level. Of course, the harvest is the harvest, and the thing Sherlock should worry about most now is to find a reason to go to Cabotage. Just when Sherlock was lost in thought and began to feel that his new brain was not so useful, the opportunity suddenly appeared in front of Sherlock. The story starts from when Sherlock came back. After a night of drama with Anna and others, Sherlock woke up and rested at home for a whole week before he could barely face his social death experience after turning into a melon that night. After a whole week of autism, plus the few days Sherlock and Anna stayed in Las Vegas, Sherlock's home can be said to have gathered a lot of patients waiting for Sherlock, the miracle doctor, to treat them. After screening some of the patients he could treat, Sherlock watched the reports about Anna and others on TV and started his daily life as a doctor. It was not until nearly a week later that Sherlock found a guy who was very familiar to him among the guys who came to seek treatment. Stephen Strange. Yes, you read that right. It was the Doctor Strange who had performed surgery on Tony's butt. Just like in the movie, this guy's hands began to shake uncontrollably because of the car accident, and there was no effect after several treatments. After asking around with his own connections, Stephen knew about Sherlock, the miracle doctor. To be honest, Stephen was also surprised when he saw Sherlock. You know, Stephen had a deep impression of Sherlock. Tony's nephew, the nephew of the only inner rectal surgery patient, since he became a neurosurgeon. So, after Stephen saw Sherlock, his face was as weird as it could be. After all, if this guy is a miracle doctor, then why did Tony still look for a neurosurgeon like him to do the surgery? Although Stephen himself admitted that before the car accident, he was definitely the most stable doctor in New York, no one else. But after all, they are not in the same department. Reality told him that the nephew of that arrogant guy who didn't even know the most basic medical knowledge and only wanted the most expensive, not the best, was actually a miracle doctor who stood above all the doctors in New York. Stephen said he couldn't accept it. As for Sherlock, he was not much different. On the one hand, he didn't even need the report of Unit 01 to see the dazzling light of the light bulb on the security detector that detected magical talent, which could not be covered by the cover. On the one hand, he was also surprised that the plot of Doctor Strange came so soon. After all, the plot of Avengers 2 has not started yet, and Tony should be following the Avengers to fight Hydra all over the world. How could Stephen have a car accident at this time? In addition, Sherlock can treat Stephen's hand. Even if he takes a step back, Sherlock even has a way to make Stephen a long-term customer. If he wants to stop shaking his hands, he must come to buy his potion. But considering that the boiled egg is still there, Sherlock decisively gave up the idea of fleecing Stephen. The two sides looked at each other and fell into a weird and awkward stare. In the end, Stephen couldn't stand this situation. For him, healing the injury on his hand is more important than anything else, so he mustered up the courage to speak. Sherlock, Dr. Stephen, long time no see. So to speak, it may be a tacit understanding between a future Kamataj magician and an active magician who belong to the magic side. The two of them actually spoke together. Then, they both shut up at the same time. For a moment, the two sides fell into a strange silence. After a long while, Sherlock waved his hand helplessly to Stephen and asked Stephen to sit down. Then he spoke to Stephen. Dr. Stephen, I know you want to treat your shaking hands. I can indeed treat them, and even make your hand stop shaking for a short time. But, after Sherlock said this, Stephen became visibly excited, and his sloppy face covered with beards could not hide his excitement. But when Sherlock said the word but, Stephen's face was visibly stunned and surprised, and the whole person became extremely scared in an instant, as if he was looking forward to Sherlock's next words, but also afraid that Sherlock did not want to treat him. Seeing that Stephen was almost driven crazy by his torture, Sherlock finally sighed and continued. Alas, Dr. Stephen, your fate is not with me. It is in the Far East. This is your fate. Whether you accept it or not, you must face it. But I promise one thing, as long as you listen to me, then in the future, no matter who it is, or what the situation is, I will help you treat it. As long as you need it. After hearing Sherlock's words, Stephen obviously wanted to say something, but the next second Stephen was surprised to find that he had come to the vicinity of New York Airport, holding a piece of paper with the address of Kamataj in his hand. Seeing this obviously unscientific thing happening to him, Stephen could no longer remain calm. After trying to calm himself down, he looked at the paper in his hand, gritted his teeth, and walked towards the New York Airport not far away. After sending Stephen away with magic, Sherlock also breathed a sigh of relief. It was a close call. I was almost caught by the boiled egg and made the Supreme Sorcerer. Chapter 441 Sherlock's Kingdom of God, Part 1. Just as Sherlock was patting his chest and sighing, a voice that Sherlock didn't want to hear came slowly from behind him. Although I really want you to succeed me as a Supreme Sorcerer, I always think that it is extremely impolite to give someone a nickname behind their back. What do you think, Sherlock? After hearing this voice, Sherlock was shocked. He turned around and saw that Guyi was sitting behind a small coffee table with a smile on his face, drinking the tea in his hand calmly. The surrounding environment was no longer his own gun shop, but Guyi's room in Kamataj, which was exactly the same as the last time Sherlock came. What should I do? I called the boss a nickname behind his back, and was heard by him. What should I do? What should I do? Waiting online, it's really urgent. Looking at Sherlock, who seemed to be embarrassed and didn't know what to do, Guyi put on a barely noticeable smile on his face and stretched out his hand slightly to the futon opposite him. Sherlock understood what Ancient One meant almost instantly, and he walked on his own and came to the futon with difficulty and sat down. Long time no see, Master Ancient One. How are you these days? Sherlock said to Ancient One sitting opposite him with an awkward smile, trying to divert the awkward topic. But it seemed that Ancient One didn't want to give Sherlock a chance at all, and the smile on his face didn't diminish at all. He calmly drank another sip of tea before saying, "Thank you for your trouble, little guy who loves to give nicknames. I'm in good health." Listening to Ancient One's answer, Sherlock was so embarrassed that he almost dug out a complete Kamataj on the ground with his feet, and his eyes were rolling around, trying to find a way to relieve the embarrassment. But it was a pity that Sherlock's ancestral home, before he traveled through time, was not Shandong, and he didn't have the same high emotional intelligence as the Shandong netizens on Daoyin in his previous life. After thinking for a long time, he couldn't think of how to relieve the embarrassment in front of him. Looking at Sherlock sitting opposite him, his eyes were almost spinning like a gyroscope, and Ancient One smiled and decided to bring up the topic. "I thought you might wait a little longer before coming to solve your problem. After all, the power of the Infinity Stone is really addictive, isn't it?" Faced with the incoherent words of the Ancient One, a question mark slowly rose on Sherlock's forehead. But when he saw the eye of Agamotto hanging on the Ancient One's chest, Sherlock was relieved. How to say it, the Time Stone is indeed a serious cheating device. Seeing the understanding expression on Sherlock's face, the Ancient One also smiled calmly, refilled himself with a cup of tea, and poured another cup for Sherlock, and then continued to talk to Sherlock. It seems that your trip to Las Vegas also made you aware of the harm of the reality stone in your body, but the good news is that the combination of the reality stone and you is not very deep now, and the things you are worried about will not happen. Listening to the Ancient One's incoherent words again, Sherlock once again raised his middle finger to the time stone in his heart. He was indeed thinking about the reality stone in his mind just now. You know, the reality stone is not deeply integrated with him now, which Sherlock can feel. But even in such a shallow situation, Sherlock can unconsciously transform an ordinary broom that can be found everywhere into a spell launcher that can be used to kill people. If the integration is deep, Sherlock doesn't even dare to imagine what will happen. If Sherlock is lucky and stays awake, nothing may happen. If he is unlucky, he may create an illusion for himself like Wanda, and he doesn't know it yet. Even worse, this is when he is awake. What if he is not awake because of the potion, or he is simply sleeping and having a nightmare? How terrible would it be to unconsciously trigger the power of the reality stone? Wake up from a sleep and find that the monster in your nightmare appears beside your bed? Just thinking about it is enough for Sherlock to get goosebumps. Thinking of this, Sherlock also put away the playfulness on his face and bowed to Ancient One very seriously before saying, "Please help me, Master Ancient One." When hearing Sherlock's words, the smile on Ancient One's face remained unchanged. He put down the teacup in his hand and continued to speak to Sherlock. "Your magic is the key to attracting the reality stone. It is not an exaggeration to say that the power of some of your magic has even exceeded the power of the reality stone. So you were able to easily snatch the control of the reality stone from the Dark Elf in London. But it seems that there is no record of using such a powerful external force in your magic. So this is why you will not use the reality stone, even if you have it. And Kamataj has such experience." When Ancient One said this, he pointed to the eye of Agamotto hanging on his chest, and after seeing the look of understanding on Sherlock's face, he continued to speak to Sherlock. "Of course, I also have a request. After all, although you are also a magician, you are not a magician of Kamataj, so you can treat this as a deal." After hearing the deal that Ancient One said, Sherlock also showed a puzzled look on his face. He couldn't think of what kind of deal he could make with Ancient One. It seemed that apart from money, he really had nothing that could surpass Ancient One. Looking at the puzzled expression on Sherlock's face, Ancient One calmly drank a sip of tea and didn't say much. After seeing Sherlock nodded in agreement with a tangled look on his face, Ancient One put down the teacup and continued. "The content of the deal is very simple, Stephen Strange. I think you should have made a choice and guided Stephen to Kamataj, right? Then the content of the deal is very simple. I need you to teach Stephen. Don't rush to refuse. Although you are not proficient in the magic of Kamataj, and the magic power in your body will cause the effect of your magic in Kamataj to be strange, but this does not hinder you from teaching Stephen, the rookie, right? Just think of it as accumulating educational experience for your future students." It must be said that Sherlock was completely dumbfounded after hearing the huge amount of information from Ancient One. He actually has students? Looking at the entire Marvel world, he can actually find someone who has the talent to use HP magic? Sherlock expressed disbelief. As for poor Dr. Strange Stephen, well, Sherlock felt that if he couldn't do it, there was still this guy Wang who could take over. So Sherlock agreed to Ancient One's deal without any hesitation. Chapter 442 Sherlock's Kingdom of God, Part 2. Seeing Sherlock agreed, Guyi stopped wasting time, drank the tea in his hand in one gulp, put down the teacup, and began to explain to Sherlock. "You should know that the Infinity Gems, as treasures that appeared in the early days of the universe, are almost what every powerful race dreams of. In some races, they have become things like wishing stones. Each gem has a powerful power and can almost fulfill any wish of the gem owner. But, you know, there are always exceptions, and you, Sherlock, are the exception. If the magic you master is likened to a river, then now you use the Infinity Gems. To put them on you can only extend the length of the river on your body, but it cannot widen the width of the river on your body. And it happens that the width of the river is the key to determining the flow of your magic river. Can you understand my analogy?" After hearing Guyi's analogy, Sherlock held his head and began to think. To be honest, after obtaining the reality gem, Sherlock could obviously feel that the power and way of using magic had become much stronger. But for some reason, Sherlock always felt that his understanding and theory of magic were a little bit off. It was like Professor McGonagall getting the Elder Wand. Although he had become stronger, he was still far from wizards like Dumbledore, Grindelwald, and Voldemort. As for the results of the potion this time, he really felt that the bottleneck that imprisoned him had loosened, and one of his feet had stepped into the door of Dumbledore's level. But there is a big difference between stepping in and really entering. After returning home, no matter how hard Sherlock tried, he couldn't find any way to really step into Dumbledore's level. It was like a hard and invisible door blocking Sherlock's steps to continue exploring. Although Sherlock had a feeling of frustration that he had the key to this door, he couldn't find the keyhole of the door. Please let Master Guyi tell me clearly. Sherlock looked at Guyi sitting opposite him eagerly, just like a student seeking to learn, as if he wanted to hear how Guyi solved his bottleneck. After hearing Sherlock's words, Ancient One smiled again, and then said to Sherlock, I should have told you a long time ago, Sherlock. You should know that all the magic of Camotage is actually the borrowing of magic power. We communicate with the Lord of Latitude to borrow magic power to use magic, and the soul after death also returns to the dimension. But you are different from us. You have magic power yourself. This is also the main reason why you can use the magic of Camotage, but the effect is sometimes very strange. And a human has his own magic power, which in itself has destined your lower limit to exceed the upper limit of the entire Camotage. After hearing what Ancient One said, Sherlock was dumbfounded. This is indeed a path he had never imagined. Sherlock has his own magic power, and the Lord of Dimension also has his own magic power. In other words, Sherlock has the potential to become the Lord of Latitude. Sherlock has never imagined this path. To be honest, the last time he came to Camotage, Ancient One said these words to him, but Sherlock didn't think about it at the time. After all, for Sherlock, a Latitude master like Dormammu, Sherlock can be said to have always believed that he was absolutely unattainable. But now, after combining the Infinity Stones, after hearing the words of the Ancient One, Sherlock finally reacted. You mean? Sherlock didn't finish his words. After all, some things are incredible just to think about, and even Sherlock himself is a little uncertain. Seeing Sherlock's shocked expression, the Ancient One smiled and nodded at Sherlock before saying, You are right, it's just as you think. Last time, you didn't have the Infinity Stones, the key to your kingdom of God. Similarly, your magic level at that time was not enough to support you to see that far. But today is different from the past. Obviously, you have both knowledge and opportunity, so are you ready now? Sherlock. Kingdom of God. Dimension? Sherlock was almost confused by what the Ancient One said, but whether it was the Kingdom of God or the Dimension, Sherlock knew one thing. If he wanted to really improve his magic, he had to take this dangerous step. Otherwise, this life is likely to be like this, which Sherlock cannot accept. So Sherlock nodded to Guyi with a serious face, and at the same time carefully asked Guyi a sole question. Does it hurt? When Sherlock asked this question, the smile on Guyi's face obviously froze for a moment, rolled his eyes, and ignored Sherlock's stupid question. Guyi waved his arm lightly, and the next second the space around him began to turn and overlap continuously. The coffee table between the two of them also disappeared without a trace in the moment when the space turned over. Guyi's actions did not stop. After pulling Sherlock into the mirror space, a symbol unique to dark magic appeared on Guyi's forehead, and at the same time, the eye of Agamotto on his body began to emit a faint green light. The next second, the Ancient One crossed his hands on the eye of Agamotto on his chest. With the faint green light shining on Sherlock's body, Sherlock suddenly floated in the air. At the same time, Sherlock felt as if he was bitten by countless ants. His whole body began to itch unbearably but also extremely painful. The huge pain made Sherlock even couldn't help but scream in pain. God knows why it is so uncomfortable to pull out the reality gem. It didn't happen when he watched Jane and Spicy Chicken shreds. Facing Sherlock's screams, the Ancient One's actions did not mean to stop at all. Using the mutual attraction of the infinity gems, one after another black and red threads like mist were constantly pulled out of Sherlock's body by the Ancient One, and finally condensed into a red gem emitting light not far from the time gem. When the last trace of black and red mist was pulled out of Sherlock's body and merged into the reality gem in front of the Ancient One suddenly closed the eye of Agamotto on his chest. As the green light of the time gem disappeared, the red light of the reality gem instantly enveloped the entire mirror space. However, Ancient One did not stop his movements at all. He slapped the reality gem floating in front of him. Under the shock of magic, the red light emitted by the reality gem became more and more dazzling. As a huge amount of magic poured in, the red light of the reality gem also began to slowly focus on Sherlock. The moment Sherlock was enveloped by the red light, he let out a more tragic scream. If the itchy and painful feeling just now was considered normal, then now, Sherlock even felt as if he had been hit by his own black magic. The pain that pierced his heart and bones almost instantly occupied Sherlock's entire mind. Hold on to your own consciousness. Imagine the appearance of your own kingdom of God. Sherlock, wake up. Just when Sherlock's consciousness was about to be enveloped by the pain that almost penetrated his soul, Ancient One's voice reached Sherlock's ears directly. Sherlock regained consciousness in an instant. Almost subconsciously, Sherlock appeared in his own library. At this time, the library was not in a good state. The entire library began to vibrate violently. The huge and irregular vibrations in Sherlock's own pain even made Sherlock almost faint several times. In the end, he relied on his strong willpower to try his best not to faint, and began to build his own kingdom of God. However, under such great pain, Sherlock could not control his thoughts at all. He relied on his subconscious to find his favorite and most familiar things. With a loud bang, Sherlock, who was in his own library, only felt a violent vibration, and then the whole person completely fainted. As Sherlock's consciousness appeared in his own library, the mirror space maintained by the Ancient One began to tremble violently. As the last red light of the reality gem sank into Sherlock's body also burst into a dazzling golden light. The entire mirror space collapsed into pieces almost at the moment when the golden light appeared. At the same time, Guyi also knew that Sherlock succeeded, and a new Dimension Master appeared. Moreover, with the protection of the reality gem, this newly emerged dimension was well protected by the reality gem. Those old-fashioned Dimension Masters didn't even find Sherlock, the newly born Dimension Master. The two also appeared in reality the next second after the mirror space shattered. Before Guyi could breathe a sigh of relief, he saw an incredible picture the next second. Under the moonlight, a huge and towering castle stood quietly on the top of the mountain. Under the castle was a lake reflecting the stars in the sky, which looked mysterious and solemn. If Sherlock could still stay awake, he would definitely recognize what the castle that Guyi saw was. That was the school that Sherlock had been looking forward to for a long time, but never waited for his owl. Hogwarts. Chapter 443 Sherlock's Changes. It was already the next morning when Sherlock woke up, and he woke up in his own library. Sherlock was almost stunned by the scene in front of him when he opened his eyes. The reason was very simple. Sherlock's library had changed a lot. If the original library was like a square box with infinite space like a Mobius strip, although you couldn't see the edge at a glance, you could always feel that the library was a closed space, and you would feel depressed and aggrieved if you stayed there for a long time. Then, although the current library is still the same as before, with no edge at a glance, that feeling of depression and aggrieved has disappeared. The whole library gives people the feeling that a room in a building has been cast with a powerful traceless expansion spell. The feeling of depression and aggrieved disappeared without a trace, and even made Sherlock feel leisurely and comfortable in the National Library. It can be said that it has changed from a simple storage room to a place where people can feel happy and even study for a long time here. The main reason for this change is actually very simple. Sherlock was surprised to find that the library, which was originally bare with only bookshelves and tables, had decorations and windows. The gentle sunlight shines into the library through the transparent windows, accompanied by the fragrance of paper. Everything looks so beautiful. Of course, the changes in the library are secondary. What surprised Sherlock the most is his own changes. Magic, this invisible and intangible hidden energy, seems to have a shape in Sherlock's eyes. Sherlock can see the color of magic, touch the trajectory of magic flow, hear the sound of magic operation, and smell the taste of magic effect. This feeling is so mysterious that Sherlock can't even describe it in words. It's like a new sensory organ has appeared in the body, giving people a new experience. It's like Sherlock can suddenly see infrared and ultraviolet rays. The world is still the same world, but in Sherlock's eyes, it begins to become colorful. And when Sherlock really stepped into the level of Dumbledore, Sherlock knew why the Death Eaters were so afraid of Voldemort, and why Professor McGonagall in the movie admired Dumbledore so much. That is not the gap in magic, nor the gap in magic knowledge, but the crushing from the level of life. If the professors at Hogwarts are the pinnacle that ordinary people can reach, then Dumbledore, Voldemort and Grindelwald have obviously surpassed all wizards in the world. This is an ability to integrate magic into one's every move. Take Dumbledore for example. As long as Dumbledore wants, you don't even know when Dumbledore uses magic. Just like Dumbledore's legitimacy in many HP fanfictions, it is used naturally. It's just whether Dumbledore wants to or not. It's not an exaggeration to say that as long as Dumbledore wants, Dumbledore can completely live a life of not touching the ground every day, with clothes and food provided for him. Subconscious magic can almost help Dumbledore accomplish everything he wants. Let's take the levitation spell as an example. After experiencing the term brain replacement, Sherlock understood a lot of magic theories that he didn't understand before, and reached the level of Professor McGonagall, who could control the speed, direction, height, etc. of the levitation spell at will. At that time, Sherlock was still complacent. But when Sherlock really stepped into the level of old Dumbledore, he realized how ridiculous he was before. Just like a simple spell like the levitation charm, Sherlock can now do more than just control the speed, direction, height and other parameters of the spell. As long as Sherlock wants, Sherlock can even modify the spell at will, so that the same spell presents completely different effects, and even the way it works is completely different. The levitation charm can make an object ignore its own weight and float up like a feather blown by the wind. If the weight parameter is reversed and the floating direction is changed to downward, then is this the gravity fruit of Admiral Fugitora in One Piece? Both are the simplest Wingardium Leviosa, but the results are completely opposite. One is upward, and the other is downward. HP's magic begins to have infinite possibilities after truly stepping into the same level as old Dumbledore and others. This also explains why old Dumbledore and Voldemort's fight in the Ministry of Magic is so cool, but similarly, the main reason why Professor McGonagall and Snape's fight in the Hogwarts Great Hall is so dull. Sherlock was like a child who had gained a new toy. Although he didn't have a magic wand, Sherlock still had a lot of fun playing in his library alone. After a while, Sherlock put down his current state, floated up gently, and began to visit his library, which had changed a lot. Soon Sherlock found some different places. Apart from the window that was constantly shining with sunlight, Sherlock also found some new things in his library. Something that looked like a librarian's office. With great curiosity, Sherlock carefully sat on the office. Then Sherlock was surprised to find that he could find the book he wanted among the many magic books with just one idea. This seat actually added a very smart automatic book search catalog to the library. Not bad, not bad. Such a change naturally made Sherlock very happy, but before Sherlock could be happy for long, he found the door opposite this workstation. You have to know that there was no door in his previous library. Sherlock came forward and carefully opened the door. Behind the door was a stone-paved corridor. Sherlock walked carefully into this strange yet familiar place. Now Sherlock probably figured out what happened. His library in the Kingdom of God dimension he opened up were merged. But Sherlock really didn't know what his Kingdom of God looked like, so he took every step carefully. Gradually, Sherlock also found something wrong. This place is so familiar that Sherlock has never been here before, but he still knows where it is. It was not until Sherlock came to the Great Hall with countless candles floating in his dreams according to his memory that he suddenly realized where this place was. Hogwarts. Chapter 444, A Day Trip to Hogwarts Castle. Anyone who has watched HP can't resist the charm of Hogwarts Castle, and Sherlock is no exception. Since realizing that his kingdom of God is the legendary Hogwarts, that can only be entered in dreams, Sherlock has been so happy. This makes Sherlock happier than stepping into the same realm as Dumbledore. Sherlock keeps patrolling and running in the huge Hogwarts castle, going to see the places he has always wanted to see with his own eyes, but has never had the chance. The moving stairs, the moving armor, the Slytherin underwater lounge located underground, the light blue lounge of Ravenclaw standing above the sky, the Hufflepuff lounge located underground, but extremely warm, full of sunshine and plants, and not far from the kitchen, and the Gryffindor lounge, that Sherlock has seen countless times in the movie. Sherlock is like a pilgrimage to a holy place, happily running around in his kingdom of God, not wanting to miss any place. Sherlock visited all the Quidditch venues, the huge Black Lake, the mysterious Forbidden Forest, Hagrid's hut, the greenhouse for the botanical class, and the House of Wishes achieved opposite the tapestry. The only flaw was that the entire Hogwarts was empty, without a trace of life, and even the paintings on the walls that were supposed to move around were motionless. The last stop of Sherlock's pilgrimage was the place he wanted to go the most, the principal's office of Hogwarts. As Sherlock stood at the door of the principal's office, the stone statue at the door bowed slightly to Sherlock and then made way for the principal's office. Sherlock stepped onto the spiral staircase leading to the principal's office with excitement and arrived at the door of the principal's office. Standing at the door, Sherlock couldn't even suppress his excitement. He felt that, as long as he opened the door, Sherlock would see a blue-eyed old man in a robe, wearing half-moon glasses, and with a beard that was almost to his waist, smiling at him. Sherlock excitedly opened the door to the principal's office. It turned out that there was no white-bearded old man, but there was a smooth-boiled egg. It's a beautiful kingdom of God, isn't it? Googie turned around and said to Sherlock with a smile, while sitting in the guest's seat. After seeing Googie's face, Sherlock's excitement of pilgrimage to the Holy Land slowly calmed down. After hearing Googie's words, the pride on Sherlock's face did not even show any sign of restraint. This is the pride that belongs to being a Harry Potter fan. Of course, this is my dimension. The place I created myself. Sherlock proudly responded to Googie's praise. Facing the arrogant Sherlock, Googie was not angry. He still smiled and pointed to the seat of the principal of Hogwarts at Sherlock, and said to Sherlock with a funny face, "As long as you like it, then, as the owner of this beautiful castle, I think you should sit back in the seat that belongs to you, right?" After hearing what Ancient One said, Sherlock realized that Ancient One had always been sitting in the reception seat in the principal's office, and the chair that should belong to the principal was still empty. To be honest, it was obviously his own kingdom of God and his own dimension, but for some reason, when facing Ancient One, when Sherlock was asked to sit in the main seat, Sherlock still felt awkward. However, despite the awkwardness, Sherlock still walked towards the chair that only belonged to Dumbledore in the movie. "Principal Dumbledore, I will try to be a principal today." Sherlock silently played the joke of Harry Potter fans in his heart and sat down on the chair that symbolized the principal's position. The moment Sherlock sat on the chair, Sherlock felt that the entire Hogwarts castle suddenly came alive. That's right, it came alive. If Sherlock felt that this castle was just a castle like Hogwarts when he was visiting, now, Sherlock felt that this castle had really become Hogwarts. Sitting in the headmaster's seat, Sherlock could clearly feel everything that belonged to the castle and clearly grasp everything that happened in the castle. The entire Hogwarts castle was no longer so lifeless and began to become lively. The portraits on the wall and the armor in the corridor began to have consciousness. Some small animals that belonged to the magical world began to appear in the forest. Countless house elves began to appear in the cold kitchen, and the quiet Quaffle and Golden Snitch in the storage room began to move, constantly trying to break free from the constraints of the box. Sherlock felt that the entire Hogwarts had deepened its connection with himself, and he could even see that the portraits of the past headmasters hanging on the wall were smiling at him, including the white-bearded old man that Sherlock had been thinking about before opening the door. After feeling that Sherlock, who was sitting on the chair, had truly become the Lord of Latitude, the smile on Googie's face could not be concealed. He had also witnessed the emergence of a new Lord of Dimension with his own eyes. Similarly, Gu Yi's trust in Sherlock deepened. A guy who could have such a beautiful kingdom of God that seemed like a fairy tale would definitely not be a bad guy. But one thing is certain, this kid is absolutely naughty. Just look at this castle full of fantastic ideas and you will know that this kid is definitely the type who will feel uncomfortable if he is not naughty for a day. After seeing that Sherlock had accepted everything in his kingdom of God, Gu Yi smiled slightly and left a sentence. After accepting the kingdom of God, you should wake up, Sherlock. There are things waiting for you outside. Then he disappeared in an instant. After Sherlock really took over the Hogwarts castle, the first thing he did was to move the 2 exchange machines in the library to the principal's office, and then he closed his eyes with satisfaction and prepared to exit his kingdom of God. When Sherlock opened his eyes again, he had returned to the real world. At this time, Sherlock was in a guest room of Camotage, and there was no sign of Ancient One around him. If Sherlock could not still feel the castle that belonged to him, and the ever-changing flow of magic around him, Sherlock would have thought that he was just dreaming. Just when Sherlock was still a little confused, a portal appeared in front of Sherlock. In the portal, Ancient One was sitting behind his coffee table with a smile on his face, looking at Sherlock. Are you still reminiscing about your own kingdom of God, Sherlock? After hearing Ancient One's ridicule, even Sherlock, who had become the Lord of Latitudes, couldn't help blushing. After waving at Ancient One, he stepped into Ancient One's portal and came to Ancient One's room. It was not until Sherlock sat down in front of Ancient One that Sherlock saw 2 things on the coffee table. One was his wand that had disappeared for a long time and had the appearance of the Elder Wand. As for the other one, Sherlock was sure that he had never seen it before, but he felt familiar with it. After thinking for a long time, Sherlock looked at Ancient One in surprise. Sonic Screwdriver? Chapter 445 Camotage and the Sonic Screwdriver, Part 1. When Sherlock directly called the thing on the coffee table a sonic screwdriver, the smile on Gu Yi's face froze visibly, but it quickly returned to its original state without being noticed by anyone. Take your things and go find Wang. He will tell you how to use this thing. Gu Yi calmly took a sip of the tea in his hand and said to Sherlock. After all, when Sherlock called the thing on the table a sonic screwdriver, Gu Yi lost interest in explaining to Sherlock what the thing on the table was. Sherlock did not notice Gu Yi's abnormality. No matter what this thing was, Sherlock thought it was a good thing, so he happily took the thing and ran out to find his good friend Wang. Wang was still the same as when Sherlock ran to Camotage, and he was still hiding in the library as his librarian, so Sherlock easily found Wang's figure. When Sherlock put the sonic screwdriver in front of Wang, Wang was obviously stiff. Seeing Wang's performance, Sherlock, who loves fun, immediately knew that there must be something he didn't know about. After all, he had already smelled the smell of melon. Of course, as the best person in the melon field, Sherlock didn't show that he was interested in the story behind this thing. He calmly put the sonic screwdriver on the table and then spoke to Wang. Master Gu Yi asked me to ask you how to use this sonic screwdriver. Hearing Sherlock's name for this thing, Wang's face darkened instantly, which made Sherlock more certain that there must be something big that he didn't know about. However, Wang adjusted very quickly and soon returned to his original appearance. After clearing his throat, he spoke. Another one is the Zevarudo scepter in front of you, which corresponds to the reality gem, and can distort reality at will, build houses out of thin air, erase objects, and even change the world in a small range. As Wang was talking, he fiddled with the so-called Zevarudo staff that Sherlock had placed on the table. Under Wang's control, the sonic screwdriver opened a claw-shaped object at the front, and as a sleeve slid down, the real gem inside, which was emitting red light, leaked out. The moment Wang saw the real gem, the expression on his face froze, and then in an instant, he used a speed that was inconsistent with his body size to restore the Zevarudo staff on the table to its original state, and carefully placed it on the table. After that, he said to Sherlock without any hesitation, "There is an instruction manual for the Zevarudo staff in the library. I will find it for you." After saying that, Wang turned around and left without looking at Sherlock's expression the whole time. When Wang appeared in front of Sherlock holding a huge book that looked like it could kill people, Wang saw the strange expression on Sherlock's face. What exactly does that expression mean? Maybe he was used to quarreling with Sherlock, and Wang asked directly without thinking, after seeing the strange expression on Sherlock's face. After hearing the king's complaints, Sherlock's mouth twitched, and he asked cautiously, "Well, excuse me, the first supreme sorcerer shouldn't be from Little Bagger's side, right?" After hearing Sherlock's incoherent words, the king looked very strange, and scratched his chubby head before saying, "Of course not. According to our records, the first supreme sorcerer's bloodline is the same as mine. Both of us are dragon people. What's wrong?" After hearing the king's words, Sherlock finally showed a look of understanding. "Okay, the case is solved. The original name of this thing should be called the World Scepter, not the Zevarudo Scepter at all." After hearing Sherlock's complaints, a question mark slowly floated above the king's head, and he looked at Sherlock with a puzzled look. After all, this thing has been called the Zevarudo Scepter for centuries in Kamataj. Why did Sherlock change its name? Seeing Wang's puzzled expression, Sherlock showed a smug look on his face. Fortunately, he had watched JoJo in his previous life, otherwise he might not understand the scepter. After thinking for a while, Sherlock explained to Wang, "Wang, your grandmother or great-grandmother should not speak English, right?" Wang, who didn't understand what Sherlock meant, nodded naively and motioned Sherlock to continue. Sherlock didn't waste time and continued. "The world in English, these two words should be pronounced in Chinese and you should understand it. It's better if you use the accent of your grandmother's generation to mark it." After hearing Sherlock's words, Wang held his head and thought for a while, and the expression on his face suddenly became shocked. How to say it? Sherlock's imagination is indeed a path he has never imagined. Seeing the shocked look on Wang's face, Sherlock also knew that it was about time to start guiding the topic in the direction of melons. With a strange smile on his face, he continued to talk to Wang. "To be honest, apart from this weird accent, what makes me curious is that you all know about the sonic screwdriver. You know, even in the outside world, many people have not watched the show Doctor Who." After hearing Sherlock's ridicule, Wang waved his hand and said to Sherlock with a look on his face that said, "You are ignorant. Please, we have Wi-Fi here, okay? Although we are in a secret place, it doesn't mean that we don't go online. What's more, the sonic screwdriver spread from Kamataj." Before Wang finished speaking, he realized that he seemed to have let the cat out of the bag and covered his mouth all of a sudden. However, even the few words of information that Wang revealed were enough to shock Sherlock. "Wow, there really is a sonic screwdriver? And it's in Kamataj?" Sherlock's eyes suddenly became strange. He looked at Wang for a while, then looked at the world scepter on the table. After a while, he pointed at the world scepter on the table and said to Wang in surprise, "Is this thing really a sonic screwdriver? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 446, Kamataj and the Sonic Screwdriver, Part 2. Hearing Sherlock's ridicule, Wang's defense was broken at once, and he started to curse. What the hell is a sonic screwdriver? What kind of name did those damn British ghosts who are good at stealing things give to the treasure of Kamataj? Sonic? And a screwdriver? I'll swear at his whole family. After seeing Wang's successful defense, Sherlock's face showed a cunning look, and he began to instigate the silly Wang like a fox who succeeded in his plan. "Tell me, what happened? I will treat you to a big meal in Hong Kong later." Under the temptation of the big meal, Wang looked at Sherlock, who had already revealed his foxtail, with contempt, and then he spoke to Sherlock. "In fact, it's nothing. As the oldest force on Earth, Kamataj is bound to have one or two traitors. The last time a traitor appeared in Kamataj was when Wang had just joined Kamataj, and the traitor of Kamataj at that time happened to be a British. When Wang first joined Kamataj, he was taught by the Englishman. To be honest, the Englishman was extremely conceited and arrogant, and often looked down on Wang, who had just joined as a Chinese. Of course, although Wang was angry, he could not tolerate it. However, it was the Englishman's concept that made Wang, or the entire Kamatage Daoyu, part ways. In his opinion, he had already obtained the power of magic, and he should rule those muggles who knew nothing. Kamatage has silently guarded the earth for thousands of years. It is obviously the greatest and most powerful magic group on the entire earth. It should not live like an ascetic, like it is now. Therefore, under the birth of such a concept, the Englishman decisively stole one of the 3 artifacts of Kamatage, which is also the only one of the 3 artifacts that can be used for attack, and fled back to his hometown. And with the help of his own magic and the world scepter of Kamatage, he began to make trouble in the entire John Bull. And Kamatage naturally couldn't let this guy continue to abuse his power, otherwise it would be a small matter for Kamatage to be exposed, and it is possible to start another world war. So Kamatage naturally sent out a crusade, and Wang, as one of the apprentices of this Englishman, was also in this crusade. As for the result, there is no need to say more. The world scepter now placed in front of Sherlock is the best proof. The only thing that made everyone in Kamatage uncomfortable was that when they were fighting with the Englishman, they were accidentally seen by several muggles. And one of the muggles happened to know the Englishman who fought with Kamatage, and he was a serious screenwriter. In this way, not long after the end of this war, one of the most popular science fiction TV series in John Bull's history was born. That's right, Doctor Who. After listening to Wang's explanation, Sherlock showed a look of understanding. Good guy, what kind of Marvel version of Grindelwald is this? At the same time, he also knew why Wang broke the defense. You became the Doctor in the TV series with the Englishman who betrayed Kamatage, and your Kamatage, who is an orthodox magician, became the villain in the TV series? As expected, it is the traditional art of the old Anglo-Saxons. After listening to Wang's explanation, Sherlock laughed so hard that his stomach hurt. It was hard to imagine what kind of villain Wang would be in the TV series. The more Sherlock thought about it, the more interesting it became. When I get home, I will definitely go back to look for the first season of Doctor Who to see if Wang is there, and then take a picture to mock him. But then again, I don't know if Ancient One participated in the crusade against the Englishman. Could it be that Ancient One is the final villain boss? Looking at Sherlock, who was laughing so hard that his stomach hurt, Wang threw the scepter on the table and the instruction manual to Sherlock in a bad mood. Sherlock didn't hesitate. He held his stomach and laughed wildly, and with a trembling hand, he caught the things thrown by Wang. He casually hung the sonic screwdriver on his waist like a magic wand, and then stuffed the book that Wang threw at him and could kill people into the library. Sherlock then smiled and put his arm around Wang's shoulders and said to Wang, okay, don't be so angry. I swear, I will never go back to watch the TV series to see if there is any shadow of you in the first Doctor Who, and then take a photo and send it to you. Listening to Sherlock's ridicule, the honest Wang almost hit him, but fortunately Sherlock used the excuse of going to eat to get out of the way. The two of them opened a portal, and the other side of the portal was Hong Kong, which was full of fireworks. After Sherlock used transfiguration to change Wang's clothes, he appeared on the streets of Hong Kong with Wang, who looked very angry. When it comes to Hong Kong's food, people's first reaction is generally Cantonese cuisine. High-end Cantonese restaurants are indeed unforgettable, but Sherlock and Wang are different. The two, who had very similar tastes in food, simply disdained those high-end restaurants. Instead, they were very interested in the food stalls everywhere in Hong Kong and those snacks with strong oil and sauce. After randomly finding a food stall and ordering a few side dishes and a few bottles of beer, the two began to toast each other. With the development of the two people's rabbit-style drinking table culture, the two people quickly changed from arguing with each other to praising each other. Well, everyone is carrying the sedan chair. The originally harmonious atmosphere disappeared immediately after Wang said, "You Avengers have been very active recently." This time it was Sherlock's turn to be confused. I saw a question mark slowly floating on Sherlock's head, looking at Wang, whose face was red from drinking, with a puzzled look. Seeing Sherlock's puzzled look, Wang seemed a little confused. After drinking the beer in the glass in one gulp, he said puzzledly, "Don't you know? The Avengers are chasing Hydra all over the world. I know that. Tony, that bastard, doesn't even stay at home. My Aunt Pepper is almost mad. The key is that this is also Captain's request. Isn't it that Captain and Falcon can't handle the Hydra everywhere, so they called the Avengers for help? Sherlock still looked at Wang in confusion and answered. Seeing Sherlock's confused look, Wang finally showed a smug smile on his face, and then said to Sherlock with a mysterious face, "Oh, then I guess they didn't tell you that the forces of the entire Earth are now chasing Hydra. It seems that Hydra has the scepter left by Loki during the New York War. What the hell? They didn't even let me know about this. These bastards are actually doing things behind my back." Sherlock can be said to be shocked and angry. Good man. The plot of Avengers 2 is about to start, and he doesn't even know about it. Is she kidding? Seeing Sherlock's shocked expression, Wang was silent for a moment. How should I put it? He was very happy. The next second, Wang had a sly smile on his face. He poured himself a glass of wine and said to Sherlock, "Well, I think you should reflect on why the Avengers didn't contact you." Chapter 447, The Devil King Sherlock, Part 2. "Oh, it's over." The captain almost unconsciously said the unanimous thought of everyone. Fortunately, Sherlock didn't hear this sentence, otherwise there would definitely be another bloody storm. Sherlock walked into the room slowly with 2 bottles of beer, and the smile on his face seemed to be a big mocking expression as he looked at the neatly arranged Avengers. "Hello everyone. I didn't expect it to be so neat. Hey, Thor, weren't you kissing Jane? How come you are here?" After hearing Sherlock's words, Thor's face suddenly became as dark as the bottom of a pot when Sherlock was on the other side of the portal just now, and he answered Sherlock's question in a low voice. "Break up." After saying that, he quietly retreated to the side to be alone. After hearing Thor's words, the mocking look on Sherlock's face became more intense, as if 2 words were written all over his face. "You deserve it." After making Thor look emo, Sherlock slowly turned his head to Tony standing aside, looking at him like a ghost doll in a horror movie. My dear uncle, you didn't expect me to find this place, did you? Oh my god, we were all comrades who fought side by side, and you actually did something behind my back." Sherlock, no, we. The captain seemed to want to excuse Tony, but as soon as he opened his mouth, Sherlock glared back with a murderous look. Thinking of Sherlock's abilities that made people feel socially dead, the captain finally chose to shut up honestly under Sherlock's tyranny. Seeing Sherlock turning his eyes to him again, Tony was sweating coldly. The CPU of his brain that could easily create black technology such as Iron Man armor was almost burning out, so he started to explain. "No, I asked you that at the beginning. Didn't you say that you were not interested in Hydra?" Sherlock was so angry at Tony's explanation that he laughed. His gloomy eyes, which showed that he was going to do something big, slowly swept over the people present, and then he spoke. "But I didn't expect you to gather so neatly at the beginning. But you told me that you were just going to help Captain, but now all the Avengers are here, and the battle is quite big. If you don't know, you would think that Hydra is going to invade New York again." After listening to Sherlock's words, Tony was very successful in keeping silent. How to say it, at the beginning, it was indeed just to help Captain deal with Hydra. After all, the base of Hydra was indeed as they advertised. Cut off 1 head, and 2 will grow. Captain alone could not deal with Hydra, which was like a mold growing on oil, so he asked for help from other Avengers. But as time went on, more and more Avengers began to participate in the action. In the end, they even met Thor, who was emoting alone. With Thor's joining, the entire Avengers, except Sherlock, were all gathered. It's not that everyone has thought about calling Sherlock to join, but thinking of the bad situations that occurred several times with Sherlock, everyone decided to hide it from Sherlock after a discussion. If it doesn't work, ask Sherlock for support. Especially Tony, who has the most contact with Sherlock, has a deep understanding of this. Without Sherlock, the Avengers are efficient and accurate, just like a sharp scalpel, pointing and hitting. With Sherlock's participation, if there is no accident, it is really not Sherlock's style. Tony, who thinks Sherlock is a bad luck, finally acquiesced to everyone's proposal. Looking at the silent crowd who seemed to be collectively hit by the enemy, Sherlock took a deep breath. forced a kind smile on his face, and said to everyone, "It's okay as long as everyone tells me who came up with this idea. I will never blame anyone else." Well, although the smile on Sherlock's face is harmonious enough, in the eyes of Black Widow, Hawkeye, Captain and Tony, it is more piercing than the cold wind in the coldest days of winter. The four of them looked at each other and raised their fingers to point at the mastermind this time. Is that the result? How can I say it? It makes people more angry. After Sherlock's voice fell, the captain pointed at Tony, Tony pointed at Hawkeye, Hawkeye pointed at Black Widow, and Black Widow pointed at the captain. Good guy. The loop is closed successfully. Looking at this scene in front of him, Sherlock successfully felt his blood pressure rise again. After trying hard to maintain the smile on his face, Sherlock tilted his head slightly. Well, give you another chance. It is obvious that the four people who blamed each other also found something wrong. After Sherlock's voice fell, the four people immediately changed the direction of identification. The captain pointed at Black Widow, Black Widow pointed at Hawkeye, Hawkeye pointed at Tony, and Tony pointed at the captain. Oh my goodness, this time there is another reverse closed loop. Okay, let's play it this way, right? For the last time, if we can't find the mastermind, then I will treat everyone equally. Looking at the four people who kept blaming each other, Sherlock was even amused. If he hadn't had 2 bottles of beer in his hands, Sherlock would even want to applaud everyone's performance. After hearing Sherlock's threat, almost everyone present saw the throbbing vein on Sherlock's forehead and knew that, just as Sherlock said, this time would definitely be the last time. In the spirit of a friend dies, rather than a poor Taoist die, Tony immediately secretly gave Black Widow and Hawkeye a look. Black Widow reacted quickly and understood what Tony meant at once, but Hawkeye was still a little entangled. But when Hawkeye looked up and saw Sherlock with veins throbbing slightly on his head and thought of Sherlock's past actions that made people socially dead, he couldn't help but shudder and made up his mind to take a risk against his conscience. 3, 2, 1. With the end of Sherlock's countdown, this time there was finally a result. Black Widow, Hawkeye, and Tony all pointed at the captain, who was an honest man. Only the captain was alone and still pointed at Tony. Fuck. We agreed to live and die together. Didn't we discuss it before? Now you bastards are selling me out. The captain looked at his teammates who were stabbed with a look of grievance and anger. The 3 people who received the captain's eye information all gave the captain a helpless look in unison. It's better to die than to die with a friend. Besides, living and dying together does not include the option of social death. Chapter 448, The Devil in the World. Sherlock, Part 1. Sherlock listened to Wang's teasing, and his blood pressure went up all of a sudden. Good fellow, Sherlock, paid for your dinner and drinks, and you are still turning your elbow outward? Sherlock rolled his eyes viciously at Wang, who was eating stir-fried food calmly. He decided to wait a while before dealing with this fool. The most important thing now was to see what Tony and his gang of bastards were doing behind his back. Sherlock didn't care whether it was an international call or not, and he took out his cell phone and called Tony. Well, as expected, he was hung up. Calling again. Damn. He was hung up again. Hey, I have a bad temper. Sherlock cursed and started calling Tony non-stop. After calling about 5 or 6 times, Tony on the other end finally answered the phone. Sherlock, you better be okay. You know, I'm fighting Hydra now. Listening to Tony's words on the phone, Sherlock was completely silent. Was he really treating me like a fool? Where is Tony at this moment? Well, do you know Stark Tower? That's right. Although Sherlock's training ground has been transformed into a gathering place for the Avengers by Tony and Pepper, Tony still transformed the top floor of Stark Tower into another gathering place for the Avengers as in the original book. If there is a difference from the movie, it is that the huge Avengers letter A logo that was supposed to be hung has disappeared without a trace. As for the reason, it is very simple: to prevent Sherlock from smelling the smell and looking for it. As for why it took so long to answer Sherlock's call, well, the reason is very simple. They were just preparing for the war and were in a meeting when Sherlock called. The saying that they were fighting was the result of an emergency discussion among several people on the scene. But they didn't expect that Sherlock was so hard to fool. After Tony said that he was fighting, Sherlock just sneered. Haha, so your battle is so silent? Dear uncle, great Mr. Iron Man, can you tell me why your battle with Hydra is so silent? Oh, could it be that you are fighting in a hotel room now? And the enemy is a beautiful woman named Hydra. Should I contact my aunt? Tony's face turned green when he heard Sherlock's teasing. Fortunately, this was just a phone call, not a video. After hearing Sherlock's teasing, Tony began to wink at the Avengers around him. After all, they were comrades who had experienced many battles, and Tony's eyes quickly made everyone understand. The captain quickly raised his shield, and Black Widow quickly picked up a golf club and hit it directly on the captain's shield. Hawkeye did not speak, but just used the bow in his hand to knock on Thor's armor standing beside him again and again. Thor still didn't quite understand what was going on. Hawkeye knocked silently, while carefully leaning close to Thor's ear and whispering something. Then Thor's face changed drastically, and he actually started screaming under Hawkeye's knocking. Falcon and Banner, who were standing at the back, looked at the strange crowd with question marks on their heads, not understanding what was going on. After looking at each other, they quickly reached a consensus and stepped back a few steps in unison, keeping a distance from these guys who seemed to be sick. After listening to the sound of fighting that immediately came out after he finished speaking, Sherlock was so angry that he laughed. Okay, how are you guys going to play? Let me hear the sound of the captain's shield. HMM. And the scream of a familiar, but slightly different guy. Okay, you guys are really willing to do anything to fool me. One last time, my dear uncle, where are you? Seeing that Sherlock didn't seem to be fooled, the faces of those who had contact with Sherlock turned pale. How should I put it? The usually cheerful Sherlock is already very capable of making trouble. If Sherlock came here angrily, it would be a mess, and they would not live up to the nickname of the devil they privately gave Sherlock. Fortunately, the captain's reaction was fast. He grabbed Tony's phone and didn't care about Sherlock's reaction on the other side. Well, Sherlock, the war here is tight. I'm hanging up first. I'll contact you when I'm free. Then he hung up the phone in his hand, turned off the phone, and pulled out the card. The operation was done in one go. Seeing the captain's skilled movements, everyone present seemed to have reacted and began to imitate the captain's movements to turn off the phone and remove the card, fearing that Sherlock, the devil of the world, would find him following the signal. When Sherlock heard the busy tone of the call being hung up from his phone, he felt that his blood pressure had never been as high as it was now. Coupled with the look of one covering his mouth and laughing, Sherlock really wanted to kill someone. When Sherlock made a call, the sound of the phone being turned off was heard. Even when he called Black Widow, Hawkeye, or the captain, Sherlock immediately understood. Okay, so you play it this way. You really think I can't find you bastards, right? Sherlock pulled out 2 bottles of beer from the wine box in a bad mood, and under Wang's horrified gaze, he shouted at the boss who was busy with the cashier. Boss, wait for the fat guy to pay. Then he disappeared with a snap, leaving only the king, who looked at the wine in his hand, the dishes on the table, and then gradually put on the mask of pain. On the other side of Stark Tower, everyone was relieved after turning off their mobile phones and anything that could be contacted by Sherlock. Seeing that Sherlock, the big devil, was finally fooled, he spoke to everyone. While Sherlock doesn't react to where we are, let's go quickly. Tony, how long will it take for the plane to arrive? No, Captain, I don't think we can leave. Not long after the captain's voice fell, Tony's face became extremely terrified, and he even said such a meaningless sentence to the captain in annoyance. After hearing Tony's words, he saw that except for Falcon and Banner, who didn't know what was going on, the rest of the people had an expression of "oh, it's over." Although he was unwilling in his heart, the captain still forced himself to slowly turn around and look behind him. I saw a golden spark appear on the huge balcony that was supposed to be used as a helipad, and then the sparks gathered more and more and began to rotate continuously and soon formed a portal. On the other side of the portal was Sherlock with a dark face and 2 bottles of beer in his hands. Chapter 449. The Quality Captain returns for a limited time. To be honest, if the captain's eyes had a bit more aggressive power after receiving the feedback from his teammates, Tony and the other 2 would have probably become corpses now. Seeing that the scapegoat seemed to have been chosen, Sherlock's expression finally turned into a smile as gentle as spring breeze, and he happily handed the bottle of beer in his hand to the captain. "Captain, I don't ask for anything, just show off one bottle as an apology, is that okay?" The captain's face turned green when he took the beer from Sherlock's hand. It was not because of showing off one bottle. After all, according to the captain's peak human physical fitness, let alone showing off one bottle, even if it was a box of bottles, the captain could show off without changing his face, and then he could run to fight Hydra for 800 rounds soberly. But the problem is, the beer in his hand was given by his mother Sherlock, and it was already opened. God knows whether Sherlock added anything in it. Well, if some strange things were added, the captain would not be very scared. After all, the liver of the peak human physical fitness is not a joke. As long as the dosage is not too large, it would only cause diarrhea at most. What really scared the captain was the strange potions in Sherlock's hand. The side effects of the potion, when he caught a cold last time, left a deep impression on the captain. It even expanded the captain's reserve of swear words to a great extent. Such unlucky things. Who would not be afraid of any well-known person? Seeing the captain's green face with the beer handed over by Sherlock, Tony and the other two quickly put on a gloating expression on their faces. How to say it, as long as it is not themselves who are killed, it is a great pleasure. But soon, the captain's expression on his face was exchanged with Tony's. This time it was Tony's turn to turn green, and the captain's face was filled with a gloating expression. As for the reason, it was very simple. Sherlock handed another bottle of beer in his hand to Tony, who was standing next to the captain. Looking at the beer handed over by Sherlock, Tony's face also turned green, and it turned green very quickly, as if he was changing his face. He was still gloating in the last second, and his face turned green in the next second. Hey, this is not fair. We have already identified the culprit. Why should I show off one more? Tony started to resist Sherlock's inhuman tyranny. In the face of Tony's resistance, Sherlock didn't even look at Tony and left a sentence lightly. The captain has identified you twice. The captain is an honest man. I believe in the captain's choice. After that, Sherlock roughly stuffed another bottle of beer into Tony's hand. Humans are always so strange. How to say it? It's like being called by the teacher to stand in the corridor during class. If you go alone, you may feel embarrassed and have no face. But if at this time, your good friend is also called by the teacher to accompany you in the corridor, then it is not a matter of embarrassment or loss of face, but a sense of excitement of sharing weal and woe. Yes, the captain is in this situation now. He raised the bottle in his hand to Tony with a Leoto stiff look, and then took the lead in performing a show of showing off the bottle to everyone. Seeing the captain already showing off, Tony's face turned green, but he finally chose to put the beer to his mouth and began to drink it, praying as he drank, hoping that Sherlock didn't add anything to it. As for whether Sherlock added anything to it, isn't that nonsense? As a fun-loving person, Sherlock would be sorry for his character if he didn't make some fun in such a situation where he was right. But Sherlock was not a devil. He added something to it, but he added a perfect tonic. Yes, you read it right, a tonic. After all, the magic world is not omnipotent. When it is time to have kidney deficiency, it will still be kidney deficiency. When there is demand, there will be a market. It can be said that the various tonics used by humans in the magic world are even more than those used by pets. There are even various categories, and the most important thing is that the price is not low. The 2 bottles of perfect tonic that Sherlock exchanged, which are only the size of lipsticks, cost almost half a ton of gold. Seeing the captain drinking up the beer in the bottle and then dropping the bottle on the ground, he looked very comfortable and shouted in a weird voice, "Huh, this thing is really powerful. Sherlock, you should open a company and let those black guys produce this thing for you 24 hours a day. Believe me, in a few years, you will definitely be richer than Tony and become the largest slave owner in the United States." As soon as the captain finished speaking, he seemed to realize what he had said and covered his mouth in horror. The Black Widow, who had seen the quality of the captain, and the Falcon, who had been watching the show with Banner, seemed to remember something at the same time and covered his head in pain. The Falcon looked like he couldn't bear to watch it, and he covered his face and muttered in a low voice, "Here it comes again. Damn it, here it comes again." Looking at the appearance of the Falcon, Banner looked at the captain, and then looked at Sherlock standing between the captain and Tony. He wanted to ask something several times, but finally held it back. Seeing the quality captain come back, Sherlock looked at the captain in surprise. No way. 3 consecutive random entries? What kind of damn luck is this? Under Sherlock's gaze, the captain's entry soon appeared in front of Sherlock. Entry name, personality flip, entry effect. The maximum reversal of personality will make the non-killing Batman start killing, and make a moral model who never swears start swearing, and racial discrimination. Isn't that easy? Do you think that's the end? No, no, no. The real fun is that the owner of the entry will know clearly what he is saying and doing, but he can't stop his actions unless the action is over. Entry time: 23 hours, 58 minutes and 24 seconds. Looking at the entry on the captain's head, Sherlock exclaimed, "Wow, this is even more awesome than the captain's coprophagia last time." It can be said to be an enhanced version of the captain with honey on his mouth. It seems that the entry is determined to pull the captain in the direction of the quality captain. Seeing the entry on the captain's head, to be honest, Sherlock also began to be interested in what the entry on Tony's head was. But before Sherlock could turn around, he heard the sound of Tony's armor flying over from behind. With a cry of pain, Tony put on the armor directly and left a sentence, "Wait for me for 2 hours." Then he flew away. Sherlock looked at Tony, who had already flown away, and could only barely see what the entry on Tony's head was. Kidney of Steel. Chapter 450. Sherlock, I'm the only one who's online? Seeing Tony slip away, it was obvious that, even if there was a mission, he couldn't continue to execute it. The captain didn't even say a word, covering his mouth and running madly towards the toilet. Soon, everyone heard the captain's extremely emotional and narcissistic praise in the toilet, which was mixed with countless plays and had to be muted. Seeing that the 2 masterminds had been punished, Sherlock's anger was barely dissipated a little. He slowly walked to Thor, who was still emo on the sofa, and began to ask how Thor got involved in the Avengers. After Sherlock threw 2 bottles of 75-degree alcohol to Thor, Thor also began to cry and complain with tears and snot in his arms. It's also very strange to say that Thor finally got his parents' permission and happily brought Jane to live on Earth, preparing for their sweet world of 2 people. But married friends know that love is very sweet, but life is still firewood, rice, oil and salt. The lifestyle of the 2 worlds soon became the root cause of their quarrels. Especially Thor was used to the roughness in Asgard, and it was difficult for him to reach a consensus with Jane on many things, so quarrels were inevitable. After a quarrel, Thor ran away from home in anger, and it happened that the Avengers were performing a mission not far from Thor at that time, and the 2 sides met magically. And Thor, who ran away from home, had nowhere to go anyway, so he joined the Avengers' actions. When hearing this, Sherlock felt a little bad. How to say it? A 1000-year-old Asgardian warrior actually quarreled with his girlfriend and ran away from home? Sherlock felt that such a thing would only happen to adolescent children, and it happened to Thor with a beard. This matter is strange, no matter how you look at it. The most important thing is that Thor seemed to have suffered a great grievance, and he kept crying and complaining about Jane's evil deeds while holding Sherlock. Looking at this big baby who is almost hanging on him for thousands of years, weighing nearly 200 pounds, with a beard and a body of tendon meat, Sherlock can be said to have goosebumps all over his body. After thinking about it, she decided to let Thor mature, mainly because she didn't want to be entangled by Thor anymore, and raised her hand to cast a spell on Thor. A variant of legilimency. In simple terms, it is to show one's thoughts to others. The way Sherlock chose to make Thor mature was to let Thor experience the plot of Thor 2 without his participation. While Sherlock was dealing with Thor, Dr. Banner couldn't help his curiosity anymore, and ran to Black Widow carefully to ask who this young man who looked so powerful was. Black Widow looked very strange after hearing Banner's question, but thinking that Banner didn't have much contact with Sherlock, she told Banner Sherlock's identity. When Banner learned that Sherlock was the wizard during the New York battle, he was so surprised that he almost let Hulk out. After finally controlling his emotions, Banner asked a soul-searching question that he had always wanted to know. Why were the Avengers present, so afraid of Sherlock? What happened to Captain and Tony? Listening to Banner's question, although Black Widow looked very strange, she also told Banner about Sherlock's strange abilities. Listening to Black Widow's popularization of Sherlock's past misfortunes, Banner, a big-handed physics expert on the scientific side, was amazed. How to say it, it was a feeling that made people's three views explode, especially when he heard that Sherlock once asked a little beauty to cosplay the Hulk. His face was almost strange to the extreme. And Sherlock here had just gotten rid of Thor's entanglement, and when he turned around, he saw Black Widow and Banner with ambiguous expressions. For a moment, even his brain circuit was a little insufficient. Damn, when did Black Widow and Banner get together? I haven't been in contact with the Avengers for less than a month. Why do I feel like she has been a lifetime? Sherlock urgently needed to know the latest progress of the Avengers, but it was obvious that people at the scene were leaving and dispersing. Sherlock could only choose Falcon and Hawkeye. They were all people of the Hawk generation, so it was probably easy to contact. Sherlock then checked Hawkeye's body and pulled Hawkeye and Falcon, two people of the Hawk generation, to the side to start collecting intelligence. After seeing Sherlock's methods, the two did not hide their thoughts from Sherlock and began to tell Sherlock everything that happened. After Captain and Falcon destroyed SHIELD and found out the Hydra in the SHIELD headquarters, the whole world can be said to have experienced a violent earthquake. The original purpose of Captain and Falcon was indeed to rescue their good friend Badgie by tracking down the Hydra. But as the two went deeper, the Hydra was really as the myth said, cutting off one head would give birth to two heads, and it began to be endless. After destroying one base, two bases would appear, one after another, as if it would never stop. No matter how powerful the Captain and Falcon were, they couldn't stand up to the opponent's human wave tactics, so the Captain had no choice but to call Black Widow and Hawkeye, hoping that they would come to help. The two were idle in the training ground at Sherlock's house, so they agreed to the Captain's invitation and ran to fight Hydra with the Captain. But as they went deeper, they soon found something wrong. The Hydra was getting harder and harder to beat. The closer they were to the core of Hydra, the better the Hydra's equipment was, and some of them were even about to surpass the highest level in the world at this stage. If this continued, there would always be a day when they would not be able to beat the few people who were still within the range of human beings. So Black Widow remembered her former teammate, the Hulk. Anyway, she had already found Dr. Banner once, so it didn't matter if she found him again. Black Widow volunteered to ask Dr. Banner to come out. Although the Hulk is difficult to control and has great destructive power, thinking that the person on the other side is the world's enemy Hydra, it doesn't matter how hard the Hulk hits, so everyone agreed to Black Widow's proposal. However, what everyone didn't expect was that not long after Black Widow left, this group of men picked up Thor, who ran away from home. It can only be said that fate is sometimes so magical. With the addition of Thor and Hulk, everyone can deal with Hydra more easily. But soon, everyone found something wrong. Hydra's technology tree climbed too fast. The first few times were physical attacks like bullets. After Thor and Hulk joined, even energy weapons appeared. The last time this thing appeared was when the Captain was fighting the Red Skull. The Captain also realized that things were starting to go wrong, but now the group of people around him, if not counting Banner, it would be difficult to get a bachelor's degree together, and naturally they couldn't understand where Hydra's weapons came from. Even though Dr. Banner is a serious doctor, he has no laboratory or site. Even if he wants to figure out Hydra's weapons, it's hard for him to do anything without rice. So at this time, Tony, who has money, free time, a site, a laboratory, and technical knowledge, appeared in front of everyone. That's right, Tony, who just came back from the universe with Sherlock, was dragged into the army to fight Hydra. As for Sherlock, well, to be honest, at the beginning, everyone thought about dragging Sherlock into the water, but considering Sherlock's ability to make trouble, everyone finally decided to use Sherlock as insurance. In case they encounter a hard bone to chew, then it's time for Sherlock to appear. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.